8 o'clock. Jared's counting chickens.
8 o'clock. Jared's counting chickens. Did he say he's doing something like that?
Since you were hablando de Espanol. This week at work, I trained a guy who's a Salvadoreño. He's been here for 20 years. And boy, howdy, does he not like illegal immigrants.
Amazing that happens when you talk to...
He's pissed off about them. He doesn't like the way the media reports on it. And he told me horrible stories about MS-13.
Yeah, I've heard horrible stories about them for years myself. But...
Yeah. No, it's like the story he specifically told me, which I think I remember hearing about somewhere else. I don't know. But because, MS-13 is famous for shaking people down. Like they would stop a bus full of people and just say, okay, empty your wallets, give us all your jewelry and crap. And apparently there was a bus with 80 people on it, and MS-13 stopped them, and they were fed up. And they just said, no, we don't have any money. Leave us alone. So MS-13 locked the doors on the bus and set it on fire and burned them all alive.
That sounds like Putin propaganda.
Obviously, I've been watching too much Fox News.
Yes.
The only thing I can really say anymore is Putin propaganda. It's the only words I know. Yeah, I know several long-time working Mexicans here, and they are not happy with but I mean, we've gone all over that.
I don't know. The stories I've heard of MS-13 are that they're all like future doctors and physicists and stuff.
What was that?
The MS is for multiple sclerosis.
13 is
how many cures they're working on.
Is that the White House gave some answer on that just this week? Let me see if I can find it. Hold on a second. I think it was Michael Moore. That picture of Michael Moore said that. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Hold on.
What a dumb thing to say.
But the White House's answer was funny. We forgot to cover that thing of John DeLynn talking about thinking we should all have conversations last week. Did I pass it already? There it is. Who's really being removed by ICE tonight? The child who would have discovered the cure for cancer in 2046? The 9th grade nerd who would have stopped the asteroid that's going to hit us in 2032? Do we care? And the White House responds that Michael Moore is free to visit the quantum computing and particle physics labs that MS-13, EDA, and the cartels are now going to have to set up back home in El Salvador, Venezuela, and Mexico.
I got to say, my favorite part about this whole thing is the White House snark. Like, they let the press secretary be a bitch, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I haven't seen a ton of it, but I've seen the complaining about it. Is she really rough on people?
Well, she's just snarky and stuff like that. Like they dropped the pretense of the NIMBYism, like we're all very appropriate and we're all bad.
Well, the lady who was the lady that they had for Biden, she was bad. She did it. I mean, she had
the Queen Jean-Pierre or the first
Yeah. I mean, she had a hard job, but she did a bad job of it on top of it being a hard job.
There was some of it that there was no possible way to do a good job, but yeah, she was not good at all. I can't remember the name of the one before her.
Jen Psaki.
Jen Psaki, the
MSNBC.
Circle back.
She was one of the ones sitting right there last week when that lady was going off on about, well, I hope that little boy with the brain tumor doesn't grow up to be a police officer and kill himself after not being able to defend January 6th. And Jen Psaki was just sitting right there through that. The other person who was sitting right there was what's his name? Steele, the guy that black dude who used to be like the president of the Republican convention. They're all just sitting right there like that's a totally normal thing to say. But what you gonna do?
As long as we can keep conscripted Ukrainians and Russians dying, we're cool with whatever.
Troy, it looks like Troy's having an existential crisis.
Yeah.
And Charles Wagner says, no talking about Jacob Hansen this week, so now I have to have an existential crisis. No, I'm just kidding. I don't need to talk about Jacob Hansen, but there is Jacob Hansening happening in the world. And
believe it or not, Kulch is talking about Jacob Hansen right now.
Right now, No,
Well,
it was yesterday.
he's got a live one tonight, I think.
No, he said. Well, at least yesterday he said he was out of town. So is there one going? I don't know.
I mean, we got to talk about him a little bit.
Well, he had his grand moment. Is that his biggest moment? Yeah, I mean,
he unlocked.
Is Trent Reznor bigger, or is it
Trent Reznor?
Trent Reznor? Yeah, he hasn't been on Trent Reznor's show
the
yet.
The cancel of Trent. I mean,
I don't know. Trent
I think
Warren's
Alex
pretty
O'Connor's
big,
bigger.
Alex O'Connor's probably bigger and less antagonistic somehow.
Yeah, there's nothing going on with Coach Geraldo tonight.
Yeah, I was wrong. Rub it in.
No. But yeah, I listened to theirs. I was half asleep when I was listening to it, and they just said the same old stuff they always say about him.
Yeah, I got a little bit into it, and when he said we don't get our own planets, I was like,
did he say that?
Well, he didn't. No, so he didn't say that, but he said this at the beginning. He's like, oh yeah, like most people have weird ideas about what Mormons believe, and he lists
said
off
weird a
things
lot,
and then goes, yeah, oh yeah, but and he just kind of so he did kind of a backhanded thing where he's like, he played it off as like, yeah, it's crazy that anybody says Mormons get their own planets. It's like, well, yeah, that's a Mormon belief, dude, and you were kind of deceptive the way you just kind of brushed over it the way you did. And yeah, no, he did keep saying weird, like, oh,
Yeah.
isn't it weird? Isn't it weird? And like, I kept thinking like, isn't it weird that God restored his one true church on earth and filled it with so much confusing, contradictory, inconsistent, counterintuitive shit that you're on this show for an hour and a half, barely scratching the surface of it all and doing a bad job of accounting for it, Isn't that weird, Jacob? But
watch this. Flip dies and becomes a god, and he makes his world just as weird. We're gonna see it. He's gonna have just as weird of a Bible on his earth. He's gonna have
that weird.
He's gonna be like, well, I totally see why God did that now. I gotta send it through an angel and plates. I mean, I gotta do that.
They gotta have faith. That's like when they're doing the planet God orientation. It's like you gotta make it weird so that people have faith. That's the way this works.
Listen though, if you were doing infinite Earths though, right? Wouldn't sooner or later you kind of want to recreate this one a little bit?
The Beatles.
So sooner or later you would make this Earth, and you would make that Joseph Smith thing happen.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's
touche. On guard. Whatever the stuff says when you want to debate. Sam Cedar. I Sam Ceder'd you. But no, was the planet Earth stuff. Did you guys see the Sam Cedar debates this week on Jubilee?
Oh God, I saw parts of that. It was bad.
Surprisingly not.
Does Sam Cedar? Does he not know what utilitarianism is?
He doesn't.
That was the impression I got watching it. The guy asked, like, is this like a consequentialist framework, like a utilitarian framework? And he's like, oh, I don't really concern myself with consequentialism or utilitarianism. I was like, what?
Yeah, so that's one of the ways, like all the moral debater people, and it's actually one of my general frustrations with most of the atheists, that they don't get that they can get like danced around a little bit on this stuff if they don't have a little bit of foundations of morality and that sort of deal. They just have such an assumption that, no, we just figured out, we got rid of God, and because we're good, it's good, or something like that. And they should be able to argue it like a little bit better than that. You know what I mean? But I bet you I think Sam Cedar, when I've listened to him, he can like rattle off what weird little policy particularity or law or something like. So he's not like the biggest idiot in the world. I'm sure he can like, well, they did this law and this law and this law and this law. It's kind of like little nitty gritty things you didn't pay attention to at all. So he does dig into something, but like when it comes to even understanding like the basics of, he didn't know what utilitarianism is. He didn't know what consequentialism is. He didn't understand that. Well, he didn't understand when that kid pushed him, or that dude pushed him on saying like, well, isn't your morality just your preference? Like, no, it's what society comes together on. But if society all comes together on slavery is good, is then it good? I never thought of it that way.
I know. Wow.
But you're bad. TV says you're bad. You know?
I bet Kent Hovind could beat the shit out of him in a morality debate. You get Ken Ham.
Oh yeah.
Like, why it's frustrating is like it's not that hard to get like a little bit caught up. You know what I mean?
Who do you think would lose in a morality debate to Sam Cedar?
I don't know, because that dude, he was using like he was definitely using Andrew Wilson
guy would kick his ass.
Yeah, totally. I mean, he just didn't even know how to like argue it back. I saw Christopher Rufo make a post about it, just saying like he was just shocked that he doesn't even know like the beginning of anybody's argument at all on any of this. But I
know you never watched like those Jubilee things. It's usually kind of a bunch of general dummies coming up against someone who's thought about this shit a lot more.
Well, I mean, I think he did. Like, there's some idiot, and I think that guy's a plant. They had some idiot in there talking about DEI tax breaks, and like that one was just a total shit show. That guy also appeared against that other little weenie. What's that weenie? The little TikToker weenie, and that same guy. Yeah, one of those guys. But he was just trying to say everybody's getting DEI tax breaks, like direct DEI tax breaks. And he just able to say, no, that's not true. I don't know what you're talking about. Because nothing was like just direct like that, except, there were some incentives in some places, but the guy just didn't even know what he's talking about. And he looked like an idiot on that. But Sam Cedar, and then Sam Cedar just, what's even weird about it, if you like go all over Facebook, like he doesn't even know that he did. He still doesn't even know that he didn't get it. I don't know. Do you want to watch O'Connor stuff or do you want to watch Cedar stuff first?
I'm up for whatever.
I can do anything. Sam Cedar, like, because I've barely followed him as a commentator. It's like the first time I remember, like, a long time ago, you played him or somewhere, and I was like, and I had this thing in my head. It's like, well, he sounds just like Fenton from Home Movies.
Yeah.
And like, and I love that show so much, and the character of Fenton is so great. And like, I have this kind of thing where it's like, oh damn, I don't want Fenton ruined by like knowing that Sam Cedar is such a fucking dingbat.
Well, I mean, I think
it makes it better because it.
Some people said he's just a lot like the character.
Yeah, I guess so. He is kind of like that.
Fenton.
Yeah. Just like this week, I don't know why that played the rounds again, because that Bryan Cranston and Bill Maher thing, I think that's kind of old, but it was suddenly making rounds. Like somebody re-upped it when he was talking about Bryan Cranston and Critical Race Theory. Did you watch that one?
Yeah,
but you're just like,
should I have?
Yeah, it's just so normie. It's just so normie.
Yeah, well, it's very normie because like if only a normie could possibly not know that you don't explicitly call for critical race theory. Like you got to subversively push it in there, say things like we're just teaching history.
Yeah, but I don't know what it's like a normie, but a non-normie. It's like a brainwashed normie to say, but nobody's ever talked about race in our schools at all, ever. And you're like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, what? They might whisper it here and there. I'm like, what school did you go to? Like,
I just got into it this week with some guy did a dumb meme where it's like, that how can you be a Christian if you want prayer in schools, but you don't want to feed hungry kids? Like just creating this false dichotomy that like, because Christians are opposed to government programs, they don't believe in feeding any child anywhere at all for any reason. There's this stupid false dichotomy thing that's like just non-existent, which is like the whole thing's like, oh, you don't want to teach the history of slavery in schools. Like we all learned it like a lot. It was stressed. Like, if anything, it was overstressed.
Yeah, that's what Bill Maher said to him. Exactly what he said to him. Like, if anything, they put it everywhere and double down on it. Oh my gosh. Did you just watch Actual Justice Warriors thing about that relay running girl?
No, I didn't watch that one.
Guess what's in that video?
Racism?
Yeah. About 45,000 fire beeps. She has like double fire alarm beeps going off. I'm like, no, it can't be. It's
funny because now every time Every time you see that in the wild now, the comment section is always full of black people like, come on! Quit it!
It's nice to meet you. Okay, so I would like to touch on the religious fundamentalism.
You guys know Andrew Wilson, right?
Yeah.
So this guy's arguments are for sure Andrew Wilson's arguments. So, I mean, this is Andrew Wilson watching it and being like, hey, look, your stuff's getting popularized like a whole lot. But it just kind of goes to show, like, just some dude who like watches YouTube is going to be able to rip up Sam Cedar on this stuff.
This aspect. Yeah. Are you an atheist?
I'm a Reformed Jew.
Usually means yes. Usually means yes. What's the name of the nasty drink the other night? We were going to have a chug. It was some kind of 7-Up, nasty ass 7-Up stuff.
I don't have a strong belief in the existence of God, but I don't think that religion in and of itself is bad.
Okay, so what's wrong with religious fundamentalists? So like when you said rights and women's rights or something like that?
Well, the problem I have with religious fundamentalists, and really more, I guess it's really...
yeah, I'm aware of showing the video. It's fair use. They shouldn't be able to do anything about it.
The theocrats, is that they want to impose their morality that comes from their religion on the rest of us. And I don't...
But morality from your view is going to be a preference, right?
And you don't want to impose your morality on the rest of us. Like, come on.
It's not morality, it's a preference.
What's
so morality without a foundation is going to reduce you to a preference.
Well, I have a foundation for my morality.
And that is when Cedar was, the second he said he had a foundation. Well, I have a foundation for my morality. Yeah, what is it? It's my preferences. That's my whole foundation for my morality. I haven't super chatted in a while. Always try to support when I can. Do you think Farah is really going to show up? Yeah, she's been asking for the debate for a long time. Those ones especially, surprise. What is it?
Which is what?
It's a humanist vision of what basically creates as little suffering as possible for
It's just basic utilitarianism. So it's just preferences.
as many people.
Okay, so you're like a consequentialist?
Yeah.
Utilitarian?
Yeah.
I don't really.
Okay.
Yeah.
He doesn't know what
I never really thought about this. Just talk about politics and just assert all day. That's what I do.
Bother myself with being a consequentialist or a utilitarian.
At the Crucible, when you think we'll do another trash talk extravaganza, I try to do one a month. I only have so much time. Time is my biggest enemy.
It's always going to reduce you to a preference. So if you say that killing is wrong and I say it's right, you would really have no contention with that.
Well, no, I don't base my understanding of civil society on religion. And so we have a civil society. We have.
We could have a civil society where murder was legal too. So what? So what?
Laws that we have decided as a society in a democratic way. And for some people, it's okay for it to be informed by their religion. That's okay.
Okay, perfect. So if the moral society comes together and we say, hey, folks don't deserve rights, you would be okay with that?
No, no, I wouldn't be okay with that.
No, I would be against it. But
It's really funny that it only happened in my lifetime, and I do credit myself for a lot of these arguments getting out of the mainstream. I do, right? But they are there for everybody to use, and I'm not going to take it away from people. Improve on them, deliver them better, and the entire 9 yards. This guy's doing great. The thing that's so funny about this is like it took until almost my lifetime for people to just kind of start pointing out to other people the big flaw in democracy is that what happens when we vote democracy out? Like, what do you do about that? It's like, I don't know. we have checks and balances, and it's like, yeah. And what happens when we vote those out? The classic Cedar shuffle. Take a stance, then wiggle away from it. Yeah, it's so funny. It's so funny.
I mean, it would be
morally right under your
not
view.
morally right. No. I'm not talking about morals.
Okay,
here.
so here's where I'm getting to, right?
What
Religious.
does he mean he's not talking about morals? I don't get it. I mean, I hypocrite covered it too. Let's watch him.
Just one of the dumbest possible things you could do. So what's your morality based off of? You know what most people do?
Yeah.
Can you think of a time in society where most people did bad things? Anytime.
Sam Cedar Jubilee thing has gone viral. This one posted by AJW and has 7 million views now on Twitter. I haven't watched it yet, but people are saying Sam Cedar got wrecked in this clip.
It's nice to meet you.
Okay, so I would like to touch on the religious fundamentalist aspect. Yeah. Are you an atheist?
I'm a Reformed Jew. I don't have a strong belief in the existence of God, but I don't think that religion in and of itself is bad.
2,000 years of human philosophy. Whatever you believe probably isn't new. There's probably somebody has like laid it all out already. And you would expect a guy like Sam Cedar to know that and at least have an answer ready when somebody says to him, like, what's your moral framework? He's like, I just don't like suffering. Okay.
Due to a preference. So if you say that killing is wrong and I say it's right, you would really have no contention with that.
Well, no, I don't base my understanding of civil society on religion. And so we have a civil society. We have laws that we have decided as as a society in a democratic way. And for some people, it's okay for it to be informed by their religion. That's okay.
Okay, perfect. So if tomorrow society comes together and we say, hey, trans folks don't deserve rights, you would be okay with that?
No, I would be against it, but I mean, it would be
morally right under your
not morally right. No. I'm not talking about morals.
Okay,
here.
so here's what I'm getting to, right? Religious foundations provide an ethical framework for one to live their life off.
I believe you can have an ethical framework without.
And if we take the leftist view to its logical tail end, to its extreme view, you have low reproductive birth rates. You have a reproductive dead end. So two men together can't reproduce unless they have to take from a healthy straight couple. Religion provides this foundation where you do prioritize the nuclear family.
So do you have a problem with gay people being married?
It's not that I have a problem. I just don't see a justification for why they ought to be gay outside of it just feels good. Can you give me another justification?
I have problems with it. How much time you got? I've got whole 2-hour debates on the morality of homosexuality. And guess what? It's a layup. People like Sam Cedar will just be like they think it's a gotcha. Like, oh, do you have a problem with homosexuality? But it's actually really fucking easy to argue against and really hard to defend. But anyway, let's see where this is going.
Brit.
Well, I think maybe that's the way they were born.
Okay. What about pedophiles? Are they born that way?
They may be, yeah.
Okay. So should we let a pedophile off the hook since they were born that way?
No, I think we as a society is just
implement.
This is exactly the kind of line I would take, by the way, if I was debating it. Which is like, if pedophilia is wrong, and just because you use the born this way defense, you don't give a pass to pedophiles to go out and be pedophiles. Now you need to explain why being gay is okay. And I already know where this whole fucking thing is going. I know where this whole, okay, so he's going to say that, Sam Cedar is going to say, oh, but it's children can't consent. And then the go-to answer to that is, are you okay with incest? And if Sam Cedar is smart, like Destiny, and he's thought about this enough to have consistency in his viewpoint, he'll say, yes, incest is fine. If he doesn't sign off on incest and bite the bullet, then he loses, because you can't have homosexuality without incest if the whole thing that you're hinging on is consent. That's how that goes.
Duties to prevent them from acting on that innate urge, correct?
Well, I think between consenting adults, it's a different thing than.
Okay, so you're okay with a 45-year-old dad with a 19-year-old?
I haven't watched this. I haven't watched this. I just know exactly how this goes.
Daughter as well. Incest.
No.
If they consent, you're okay with that?
No, I think society has also determined that it's not beneficial.
The thing is, what hypocrites pointing out is we watched this before with Destiny and Trent, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's the same trap that Trent.
It's a trap that's.
But Destiny didn't take the bait. He just copped to the evil things that he believed.
Yeah, but that's just it. Is it's almost like Sam being completely unaware of a constant kind of internet argument trope, and he's a debate me bro, and you're like, how are you not ready for this? Just a little bit, It's kind of like it'd be like Jacob going into this other argument thinking that tithing or Book of Abraham is not going to come up.
I don't really trouble myself with being Trinitarian or non-Trinitarian.
Yeah, people can give answers to it and better answers to it. It's just the way he was just completely caught off guard.
I guess if you surround yourself with dunces like Emma Vigeland all the time, if you are the smartest person in every room that you're in, you probably only hang out with dumb people. And Sam Cedar is used to being the smartest person in the room.
Emma Vigeland, she did something stupid this week too, and they're all fighting with Jake again. And
the trans thing,
yeah,
when she reposted the video of that girl getting just smashed in the face.
Yeah, and ha. But there was even another dumb one in between that. AJ. Actual Justice Warrior did another one on her just this week, and iDubbbz is going in on unfriending H3H3.
That shit is wild. I don't know how you don't like. That seems like just such a clear cut side to pick.
Yeah,
you got even if, weird political divide aside. If I don't like.
Did you watch any of it, Flip?
Which one?
That Hassan has all of his people going after and sending child protective services after Ethan. They're trying to get his kids taken away.
I only saw blurs, but I didn't watch it.
And then iDubbbz backs out of it. You remember iDubbbz, the content cop dude, the dude who put on the fight with Sam Hyde, and so he could be like, I challenge you, Hassan Piker. Type thing. That guy who put on that fight and who came up with the wheel of irony thing, the circle of irony. That guy, who's a longtime friend of Ethan's, is unfriending him after those guys sicked child protective services on his kids.
Yeah, it's I feel like if I dislike John DeLynn quite a bit, and I feel like if you and him gotten some beef. And you called CPS on him and said that they were living in squalor and dog shit. I'd be like, dude,
I denounced
you're fucking out of line.
Yeah. It's almost like the same thing as the a bunch of them been going on lately. Some swattings. There's been a bunch of swattings lately.
Oh, yeah.
And
we're seeing a lot from the tolerance crowd this week,
yeah.
like the stuff that you're just talking about, and then there's also this whole phenomenon of people in real life vandalizing Teslas,
Yeah.
and then
Oh yeah,
the tolerance crowd on social media cheering it and saying, "Oh, isn't this a good idea?"
Wow, it sounds like somebody's never heard of the paradox of tolerance.
But, like, one of the things that
You haven't seen an internet meme. I've done the internet meme and have the degree in the internet meme.
The definition of spite is when you hurt yourself to hurt someone else. And I just think it's so funny, this whole phenomenon of people who, way back in the day, they bought a Tesla to do a virtue signal and save the environment. And now they don't like Musk, so they're like, I'm selling my Tesla. It's like, okay, first off, he's already got your money, stupid. Selling a used Tesla doesn't change anything. But also, by selling your Tesla and buying another car, you're dumping another 100,000 tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Like, they just don't even think it through. They just don't even think it through. Like,
they firebombed some of the electricity stations, and look at these. But this is one of the reasons they're getting rid of the cars too, is because people are just vandalizing people's random cars, and they don't get to, like, half of those people got some sort of like green tax credit for getting those cars like 4 or 5 years ago in California.
Like the chances that somebody bought a Tesla because they are politically on the left and thought they were making an environmentally conscious choice is very high. So, like, you are only hurting your own team.
It's so stupid. But at the same time, too, that they go around justifying it, like saying, like, it's just vandalism. It's not terrorism. It's just vandalism.
It's not violence.
Critical point.
Graffiti is the language of the unheard.
Yeah. This was that. Oh, look at the term. Sam Francis came up with the term of a mid-level violence. He was like a paleocon from the 90s, and he just talks about how the left's able to get away with that just so easily. But this is the other little clip of that Sam Cedar argument that became a big dumb thing. Let me see if I can. I've lost my place. That is not it. So there was another one where he got this gal who, for all intents and purposes, she's pretty hardcore nationalist, like identitarian.
Oh yeah, I saw that one.
It turns out she's a Canadian, though. Imagine that, how often that freaking happens. But where did I lose it to? A Mormon explains. Here it is. So this gal, remember, while they're sharing this with you, they're not letting you know this is a Canadian. But anyway.
What's the problem with xenophobic nationalism? Don't you think that's better for Americans in general?
To be xenophobic nationalism is better.
We should have a coherent culture. Everyone should be a part of the same culture. We should have assimilation.
Which, do you get to choose what the culture is?
We already have a dominant culture.
What is
based
the dominant
on
culture?
European and Christian values and identity. That is the dominant culture.
White Christian,
it's rooted in European identity.
White. So your argument is that
has been the dominant culture.
Just to be
and
clear,
we're not letting people assimilate to that. We're saying you should keep your culture, and this is why our culture is so divided.
Your argument is that Trump is good for those who want a dominant white European culture.
I mean, that is what America is. It's rooted in European identity and Christian values. That's what it has been. Would you really disagree with that? What is it then, if that's not the identity of America?
Well, I think the identity of America.
For the majority of time, America's been a country. You don't think that's been the identity?
Well, actually, no. I think actually the identity of America has been, for better or for worse, a melting pot in that regard.
Yeah. Maybe since like the 1960s. Even then, even we had this idea of a melting pot literally means assimilation too. It means melting. It means you're assimilating to the dominant culture. Is that not what melting means?
No, it doesn't.
And
mean
now
that
instead we're saying there's something wrong with xenophobia.
Culture. No, I mean, look, I got to be honest with you. You and I have a fundamental disagreement. We will never see eye to eye on this. It's a choice. And people, I think what you're expressing, though, is really what the Trump movement at its heart is about. And I think that's problematic.
I disagree. I don't think Trump's like anywhere close to being a Christian nationalist. That's ridiculous. Like Trump's basically a Democrat from like 15 years ago when it comes to social
So you don't
issues.
think that he's conservative enough for you?
Oh, definitely nowhere close. No.
He's xenophobic enough for you?
No, he's
So that's his game, is just to like give his dumb little face and kind of insinuate that somebody's the slur that he gave them, but
just trying to pour a bunch of H-1Bs. Are you kidding?
Right. Oh, so you want to get them out too? Yeah. No, I mean, I think you're making my argument for me.
So then a bunch of memes came out of that, like this one. I shared it with you guys earlier, but it was that one. Like, you want a high trust, homogenous Christian society, Anon? That sounds problematic. And just that with that face, and people were just passing that face around. I prioritize my family over foreigners. Well, that's problematic, Anon. That's so funny that little graph keeps coming up of people right there. That one. Oh, Jacob put out this graph showing that he's somewhere in the middle of where Mormons generally are, at least according to this little test. And I added Dan McClellan's little dot in there. But this is kind of like the summation of it. This guy says, teaching ethics to undergrads in 2025 is bizarre because they insist morality is entirely relative and culturally constructed, while simultaneously holding unshakable ethical convictions and viewing disagreement as moral monstrosity. And that's one of the things that was always mind-blowing my entire life in grad school, of learning the postmodernism, right? Because just like Dan McClellan, who's a Foucauldian, the postmodernism is supposed to be, there's many different ways and all the ways are good, but who's to say? But then somewhere in there, they insinuate that something degenerate is the good one, and then somehow insinuate that something status quo is the evil one. Beyond insinuate, like they can't even play their own game anymore, that it's all just culture constructed and everything's equally good. They jump to, but no, yours is bad and you're evil and terrible and horrible. Which
but who's to say?
Which brings up the other stuff that was going on this week, the free speech stuff, and kind of the Andrew Tate stuff too, and the Candace Owens and the Jews, the Jewish question, all that sorts of deals. Like there's all these fights about this guy getting deported for, I guess, not having like a green card, or he had a green card, but he couldn't associate with, what was it? He couldn't associate with an organization. He was the spokesperson for an organization that helped a bunch, like about 100 of those different little campus pop-ups to protest for Palestine. He was in with that organization somehow, and he's a spokesperson for it. And being a spokesperson for it, they said, we don't have to continue your green card, and they deported him.
Yeah.
And so Glenn Greenwald and some other people aren't happy with like the free speech implications of that. And then other people are pointing out that, well, you don't have to do that for the green cards and all that sorts of deal and stuff like that. But on top of that whole entire thing, you get the dissident right types who say he should have been able to stay. The same ones who are upset about the H-1Bs are saying he should have been able to stay because he was criticizing Israel, But
it's pretty wild. I don't know. I mean, I understand the idea of if somebody comes to America and has a green card and says death to America, like I support jihad, we should all that shit. I can understand being a little alarmed and saying, okay, you can't be here anymore.
No, like if there was a guy who was unironically supporting Nazis killing Jews, there would be no debate about this. Everyone would be like, yeah, okay, you can't be in the country anymore because you're not a citizen and that's not allowed. But for some reason, it's okay. Like, that's the other great irony of the thing going on right now is that all the same people who are misidentifying anyone on the right as a Nazi are unironically supporting Hamas.
Well, I don't know if he came out and supported Hamas. Like, we don't.
Well,
Well,
the Lotus Eaters seem to have better receipts about that one.
Oh, really?
It looked like, yeah. I hadn't seen theirs yet. Viva Frei had a tough time verifying it. He was a spokesperson for those organizations that did have that all over it, but he himself didn't. But these guys claimed that they had some receipts that he had led some chants that said "river to the sea" and "death to Israel" and stuff like that. And,
yeah.
but that's them who said that they had the receipts. So Viva Frei was having a tough time, which is kind of funny, like seeing Viva Frei trying to get on the side of that guy. It's so weird, like how stuff divides up in different factions so fast, so often, which is the same thing that happened with Andrew Tate. Like suddenly there's an Andrew Tate thing coming back, and all these people on the left are like, whoa, these right guys sure like Andrew Tate. And you look at them like, no, that's about split right down the middle. About half of them hate Andrew Tate and half of them like, no, Andrew Tate did nothing wrong. He's one of us. And I don't get it. Like, I do not get the simping for Andrew Tate.
I don't understand that at all. He's a piece of shit. Like, I don't use this word often, but he's actually sexist. He actually tells women that they're less than men.
Forrest is saying that JP roasted Candace. I haven't seen that one. Is that just barely? I think I saw his video drop, but I didn't see it yet. Maybe we should watch it. But
I do like seeing Candace get roasted.
Yeah. That actually kind of brings back around. Man, I'm getting farther and farther away from Jacob and Alex. But the Mormon Newscast talking about the Manosphere this week. It cracks me up listening to them talk about it. I put a comment on their thing saying, like, you guys sound like Quakers telling us to be afraid of the washing machines. But I mean, they said like Andrew Tate and Jordan Peterson were the same person or something like that. But
yeah, it's amazing. Like the old Goebbels things, like just tell a lie and tell it enough times until it becomes true. And that's things like the left has absolutely just, or the other meme of the NPC getting the chip installed that says Jordan Peterson is the same as Andrew Tate. Like, because there are some things where you like could maybe make an argument or see a misunderstanding or make an interpretation. It's like, no, that's just totally backward. Like, it's completely wrong. It's not even a little bit correct, And that's things like I always say about those people is like, I know one of two things: you've listened to Jordan Peterson and are consciously lying about what he says, or you are lying about knowing what he says because you've never listened to him and you're speaking authoritatively about him anyway.
Bill Reel's the one who said it, and we already know from other stuff that Bill Reel has listened to and agreed with Jordan Peterson. But I don't know. Listen what they say about it.
Interviewed is Levi Sands, who's a graduate student. So Amy's a faculty associate. MLFC, not sure what that stands for, but Division for Advancing Education Policy, Practice, and Leadership. Part-time instructor at, I think, Arizona University. And then Levi Sands, graduate student, graduate of Utah State University with a bachelor's in sociology and a minor in biology. They were the two that were interviewed. And what they were pointing to, the theme of the podcast.
Bill Reel, RFM, Rebecca Biblioteca. If you are getting your Manosphere information from those two people, you don't know what's going on.
Is that we have this cultural moment, and it sort of reflects in the election that happened with Trump winning, the impetus to get transgender women out of women's sports, for instance, and the way that that's all being articulated. It's a cultural moment where folks are entrenching back into some conservative ground, and one facet of that is hypermasculinity, which they called the manosphere.
Entrenching back into that conservative ground of 2 years ago. how many years ago was it? I'll pull something up here.
And it's pushing back of the movement geared towards the equality and lifting up of women. So this is pushing back against that. So Amy Chapman and Levi Sands are on Mormon Land's podcast to express how such is manifesting itself within LDS culture. It was about a 40-minute or so podcast. I want to start off by sharing some quotes from Andrew Tate because they refer to Andrew Tate, and I think it helps the audience to have some understanding of who he is. He's a gentleman that a lot of people in our society look to. It sort of kind of goes hand in hand with like the trad wives trend that we see, which is where women are showing that, hey, we are homemakers, we're proud of it, we're going to make bread and homemade meals every day, we're going to keep our house clean, raise the children, and let the men do the men's work. Well, Andrew Tate is that kind of guy who's doing the men's work. These are some of the things that he said. A woman's primary value is her beauty and femininity. He said women should focus on nurturing their femininity rather than trying to be like men. I feel like I'm Nemo and I'm trying to say anonymity.
Well, it's femininity. It's spelled correctly in the second one, and there's I think what do you call it? A syllable missing in the first one.
Yeah, these
Why
are
are they
copied off
picking the
Google Images.
tamest
So, and then
fucking
Andrew-
Tate quotes ever? Like you can find TikToks of him saying, "You tell your bitch to get in the kitchen, because women aren't nothing."
I mean, I'm not real connected to things, so maybe I'm just way off. But when he says like, "Oh, he's the major voice," I first heard of him when he got arrested in Romania. That's when I learned about who he was and all that. Like, I literally didn't like. Is he really that popular, or is he somebody that says such outrageous stuff that he just gets hate blasted everywhere?
He's gone down in popularity, I would say, since he got arrested and stuff. So he kind of did get more popular before. It was very, very advertised that he had done horrible things to minors. You know what I mean? But still, he acted like a sort of pimp then. And I would say if he got popular with anybody, it was with they used to bring him up on War Radio all the time when Cardin would have like his little cousin and his kid on, like these little 13, 14-year-olds. And they, like dead serious kids that age were like, "Oh, I know Andrew Tate, he's got a big car, I drive around the car." It was kind of like Hassan Piker followers, if you know what I mean. Like they say that most of the people who follow Hassan Piker are also 14-year-olds. There's a bunch of weird little 14-year-olds following people on the YouTube. And we know a couple of people who say that their kids are getting into this stuff. And I guess I couldn't expose right here, but maybe they could themselves at some point or another. But kind of youngsters, it's kind of like the non-philosophical crowd, like they're still too young to get into that. But they just like somebody who's saying masculine stuff. But I would say since they got arrested, they're kind of just coasting on him and his brother, their original popularity. Because they used to run around with those like Fresh and Fit, those guys. And so they do like a bunch of those videos where they got a bunch of hot women on to kind of berate the hot women, you know, like berate them about their delusions, which is real easy to do because those women were all full of homath type delusions, right? And so they get real popular with that, and then also show that they had a car and did all this stuff and knew how to talk to whoever and that sort of deal. But they've been exposed, not just because they got arrested. There's video of him talking about beating, a sex scam and beating and having sex with an underage woman and using them to sell them and all that sorts of stuff.
Well, you know what's funny to me? I thought the thing that I don't know how this didn't sink him when he's explaining what they did, like with his own base. I mean, I don't know how this specific thing didn't sink him with his own base, because he's talking about having those cam girls, right? And so the allegations are that they got them in there and took their passports and basically trapped them there, made them do cam shows. But
he bragged about doing this stuff.
Yeah, he bragged about that, and then he said he was the one typing. Him and his brother would type, and the woman would pretend to type. He's like, and it's because we knew what guys like and stuff, and women are dumb bitches, and they don't know what men like. So it'd be like, "Oh yeah, I want to gag on your cock," and it'd be us on there, and these dumb asses are sending us their money and stuff. I was like, I don't know how that didn't sink in with his base, because I feel like they'd be like, "That's gay, man. You fucking cuck. You were sexting dudes."
Yeah, there's a lot of it, but even just that the fact that he was kind of admitting to do stuff with an underage gal, and they have the gal, you can see her talk about him doing it to her, and also talking her, not just that, he was talking her into cucking for him, you know, type stuff, because he's a pimp, you know.
Man.
But anyway, like Carrie Smith, I just saw her put this up, like when she's done shilling for the Tate Bros, Harvey Weinstein, who will Candace Owens try to rehabilitate next? Epstein, Scott Peterson, O.J. Simpson. But it is weird because like those other guys who used to be on Crowder keep putting them up too. The brothers, those twins. What are their names?
Oh yeah, the Hodge twins.
The Hodge twins are like all honking for him. I keep saying like, what are you guys doing? Like those guys have just been they're kind of normies, but they're so normie that like I've hardly ever majorly disagreed with them. You know, what I mean?
They also
and they're just like, yeah, Tate rules. I'm like, what are you guys doing?
Well, they also had Ian Carroll on the other day, and they were shitting on Jews.
Yeah, well, Ian Carroll. So that's a whole other realm of stuff that's going on right now that has to do. Jonathan asked us what was going on with it. With Martyr Maid, and Martyr Maid was on Joe Rogan today. It was actually ultimately a really boring podcast because all he did is talk about, well, you got to learn everything about history, learn all the sides. Everybody gets mad at you, learn all the sides, but you got to learn all the sides. Just repeat that for 3 hours. But I mean, I guess they say he has a pretty good podcast. You've listened to a little bit of it, right? I've never listened to his. I've listened to podcasts of him
to Martyr Maid
about his podcast. I've never listened to his podcast, which is supposedly like a Dan Carlin type podcast.
Yeah, I think I listened to like an hour of it, but it's been a while.
Yeah, so he a while back with Tucker Carlson called Winston Churchill the true villain of World War II.
Oh, he's that guy.
And it caused like a major shitstorm everywhere, and all these people kind of freaking out. Like, what is he talking about?
Is that how he said it? Did he say the true villain?
Yeah, he said it, but
he didn't just say he was kind. It was a worse guy than we thought he was.
No, he said it, but there's also a truth to that. That if you listen to Dave Smith and Joe Rogan, correct for him, is that before he said it, he says, I'm going to say something just to rile people up, and that's what I'm doing. I do this because it riles up my buddy when I say this. You know, he gave like that caveat before he said it. You know what I mean? And so it's not like he actually thinks that Hitler wasn't worse or something like that. But he also does make some arguments that like maybe Hitler wouldn't have gotten as whipped up if Churchill hadn't have done some shit. But those are his arguments, and he hasn't even really dropped his entire World War II podcast, which is coming out later. So he's just like hinting at this all coming up, right? But
I'll be right back.
Go ahead. Oh, he said be right back. One of the other things he did is, do you remember that Olympics where the weird blue Dionysus guy came out?
Oh yeah.
So when that came out, he just put out a tweet, and it was kind of like a 4chan-ish level tweet. And his tweet was like some sort of picture of, I think, the Nazis when they had occupied Paris, and those blue, sex freaks occupying Paris, and just said like, well, which one was better? You know what I mean? And he was being a shit poster there. He wasn't like really saying, golly gee, I wish the Nazis had won. You know what I mean? He was just making a commentary about the run over shit show that is all that sort of stuff. So he became like a supersonic, can't touch him type character. Andrew Tate was getting brought back into Florida, and Ron DeSantis said, get out of here. And they started saying that they were going to prosecute him as well. And so then there's like a split down, some sort of division, like with kind of goofballs on the right who just wanted to say Tate did nothing wrong. And then it became this whole other thing, like who's backing up this Martyr Maid guy? And so like all these arguments about Churchill started coming out, but then it started being like the libertarians like Dave Smith and Keith Knight said, no, there's actually a lot of stuff that you should think about here with Winston Churchill. But then guys like Victor Davis Hanson would say, there are so many logistical problems that you guys just don't even understand or think about. And he talked about it a little bit, although Victor Davis Hanson was able to talk about it without freaking out, because that's how Victor Davis Hanson is. But so James Lindsay and Dave Smith got into a big fight because James Lindsay felt that Joe Rogan shouldn't have been putting the Martyr Maid guy up because he was kind of calling them woke right type stuff too. And so that became a whole big issue and deal of people infighting on those sides. Do I have this plan?
I heard it.
True power lies in her ability to inspire and support her man. And then lastly, I don't have an image with this one, but these were his words: women are meant to be led, not to lead. And so you can see the sort of sentiment that Andrew takes on. And there are a lot of men in today's culture who relate or like what he's saying. And so they were sort of speaking. Yes, please.
I'm sorry. I just don't know who Andrew Tate is. Who is
I don't know. Yeah, he's got a podcast.
It's so funny. I'm talking about that. I don't even know. I mean, that's good that RFM doesn't know who he is, but I don't know. Mitchell Clark says this is this is true too. Tate tried to make the argument that having sex with a hot trans woman is less gay than having sex with a masculine cis woman. He said so much weird crap. He was such a weirdo, dude. Like I don't know how he got popular either, but
he does a lot of speaking in public. He sort of has designed his life so that he's a go-to guy for this culture to go to and get advice from or to get thoughts from. I don't want to call him a thought leader. You know, Sam Harris, Jordan Peterson also sort of falls into this group.
An influencer?
Yes.
He's an influencer?
He is, but he sort of sets himself up to be the go-to guy to get ideas.
See, I mean, that's just not good enough separation there, because Jordan Peterson and the Daily Wire guys have all been coming out decrying Andrew Tate, which is part of their separation with Candace Owens. Like, they all say, get rid of Tate. We don't want Tate around here. You know,
Is from
stuff that you won't see on the left, like over on the left when Hassan Piker's saying all the craziest crap in the world and backing terrorists. This is the point Jordan Peterson always made, is that people on the right will cut off the people that they should cut off, like saying, nah, we don't want anything to do with you, buddy. Whereas on the left, they won't cut their guy off unless he seems to go right in any. So if they think Eaton's somewhat slightly tilting right, which in their book is him supporting Israel over Gaza in any way. And
he doesn't even support Israel.
Yeah.
Like
he's just saying, don't kill them, don't murder them all, please.
He's pretty against Israel for the most part. He just says it's bad when we kill, like, maybe don't call babies colonizers.
Yeah. But all over the right, there's people who are, I always kind of think about it, the way people treat their slop, their food. Like, do you keep lines between your entree and your main dish? And like, the conservatives are guys who put lines between other things, and the left just slop it all on the same plate. And they think the right is like the left. Like, no, these guys there's a hard division going on right now on who accepts Tate and who doesn't accept Tate. And there's a hard bunch of fighting going on right now on who's even willing to accept those arguments about Churchill, which, as I brought it before, I think some of the stuff in that's interesting, not in the sense of, oh, geez, Churchill was the real villain. Keith Knight was just on with Dave Smith, but Keith Knight did his own little podcast on some of the reasons to reconsider some things that Churchill did as maybe being kind of destructive. And some people are pointing to Volodymyr Zelensky as he wants to be the current Churchill, which the current Churchill thing is like, in the face of all odds, just keep fighting no matter what, even if you kill everybody.
And, in early in World War II, one of the things that Churchill, just the English military did that, like, looking back, you're like, wait, really? It was fucked up. Is it's the Battle of Dakar. I can't remember. It happened in I think Senegal, and the English Navy opened fire on a whole bunch of French warships that were in the port there because it was a French colony. And because the English thought they were afraid that if they didn't sink the French ships, that they would fall into the Nazis' hands. So the English sank a bunch of French ships and killed a bunch of French sailors.
Jesus.
To stop them from ending up with the Nazis.
He's not wrong. And Keith Knight, go to Keith Knight's channel. He does a little bit with Dave Smith just yesterday. But he's got a long list of stuff like that, Like, Churchill did some crappy things, He did some crappy things. And one of the arguments in Scott Horton's book about provoked, that he brings up is he says, I say that Russia got provoked. I don't mean that they're justified.
Yeah.
Provoked means, yeah, I came and attacked you, but there's other ways to attack back that aren't violence or crazy things. But then they can make those same arguments for Churchill. Like, there's reasons Churchill did some stuff, but maybe he had other outs, what I mean, is what some people point at or talk about,
From this hypermass.
Just like with Putin, because like one of the things, Putin has all sorts of different energy options. Like the same thing we were criticizing the EU for last week. They're energy dependent on Putin. And he could have done the type of stuff Trump's doing right now, like tariffs and all that stuff, which are non-violent uses of like soft power to get people to change or do something different rather than war,
Masculine culture. And he's sort of done that. And by the way, yes, he is an alleged pedophile and rapist. I don't want to get down this track because he's not the center of the story. But it's important to sort of know who he is as we get into this, because it gives you a feel for the kind of perspective that he holds, which is very much patriarchal. And so that's him. So Levi Sands comes into the podcast first, and I'll just list some of the things that he shared in the conversation, and then I'll share some of the things that Amy said. But Levi said that the manosphere is homophobic. It insists that males need to preside and lead, and women have distinct housekeeping qualities, and they look to the family, and they, meaning the men and the content creators who feed this perspective, look to the family proclamation as support for the validity of their perspective. They mentioned certain groups. One of them they mentioned was the LDS Freedom Forum, which I'm familiar with, but not real familiar with, as a discussion board where lots of very hyper-conservative conversations occur around Mormonism. And
do you guys know that forum at all?
What's it called?
The LDS Freedom Forum.
Oh, that sounds familiar. I might have gotten kicked out of it at some point. Hey, so we were talking about over the last few months how Bill Reel was slowly getting more and more based.
Yeah.
And then he does this.
Yeah.
What was it that happened to him, you think? What happened to him in his life?
Oh, that's right.
Made him a little cuck bitch.
Oh yeah.
That's a good point. He made an announcement that he got longhoused. We're in the endless longhouse. I didn't have anything to put as like the main thing tonight, so I just showed that they were bragging that Utah's 2 main prison wardens are women now. Longhouse, folks, we're in the longhouse.
Is this DesNet adjacent?
it is DesNet adjacent. Yes.
I mean, well, there's overlap. It's not
Yeah.
just adjacent. There's
It doesn't
overlap,
mean
right?
anything.
Yes, they mentioned DesNet in the conversation as well. But I think we all sort of give.
That doesn't mean anything either. Like Andrew Tate's for that like family thing, and then you get some like certain religious types online who talk like that for sure because they've always talked like that. It's not anything new. It's not. This is what blows my mind. It kind of goes in line with like Jacob's little chart of like, guys, I'm actually very, very basic normal Mormon. That's always been my point. Like Colt and Kobe are freaking out like, what is this guy? He's everyone you ever grew up with ever. Like,
that's a given that DesNet would fall into this category. LDS Freedom Forum is a hyper-conservative LDS area as well as hyper-conservative political area, and it's sort of where politics and Mormonism collide in a conservative fashion. And so I did put the logo there so you could see that. Also, folks that we've mentioned in the past that I don't think will surprise anyone. Levi mentioned specifically that Greg Madsen and Quick Media, Ward Radio, and Jacob Hansen are also pushing this manosphere narrative within.
So like the closest one I'll give to that, and these guys are going to give props like I've seen Colt and those guys do give to Kwaku. And guess what, guys? No, like Kwaku is the Tate guy, and the rest of those guys are the ones who are the Mormon simps that we kind of joke about, or the yes dear simps. Quick and Jacob and Cardin are the my wife is my better half Mormon simps, and Kwaku is the one into Andrew Tate.
I know. How many times do you think Cardin has boomery said like, I sure did marry up?
1,000,001 times. Or are you asking from the podium because it's 2,000,000 times? He
Get
somehow
up
said
from
it
the
more
podium,
from
he's
the
like,
podium.
I'm so grateful that my wife puts up with me.
I mean, that's what we were talking about. The
You
Ruby
are
Frankie
terrible.
stuff last week, and the angle that none of these guys noticed that every single man in that entire series is a trampled over dude. He's a henpecked. They're henpecked, and don't tell me Greg Madsen's not the henpecked type either. Like, I could tell Greg Madsen's just a typical conservative boomery guy who, just like Jared said, every single time he gets up on fast and testimony meeting, he says, "Well, Jew Wilker, my wife sure puts up with me." And Kwaku's the one who brought in Andrew Tate and loved Andrew Tate with him. Like, you got to have Kwaku's the one saying, "Show me your physique." Kwaku's the one saying, "You don't have money, you don't have card, you're old." Kwaku's the one talking like Tate, and these guys you guys get everything so ass backwards.
In Mormonism. He mentioned kindly enough to us, he mentioned that Mormon Stories, Mormon Discussion, Julie Hanks, feminist Mormon housewives are pushing back against these sentiments, and that there's this battle going on right now in our culture where, and we saw, we mentioned it recently when we talked about the LDS website that is positing that Joseph never did use a seer stone, that it was always the Nephite interpreters, and that Joseph Smith wasn't a polygamist. Do you remember the offhand, Arif, and the name of that one?
Well, I think the Joseph Smith Foundation.
Yes,
one
that's
place
what
like
it
that.
is. Yep. And so they're sort of noting that this is all sort of the same thing, which is the people who are bothered by the way in which Mormon history has gone, the way in which Mormon culture has gone, changes to the temple to remove much of the sexism. these efforts by the church and by the culture generally around it have sort of sent up warning signs to all of these groups. And so they are trying to push back hard against it. And so Ward Radio, Jacob Hansen, Quick Media, which is Greg Mattson, are in various parts of their language supporting it. By the way, Levi and Amy did make the
Jacob Hansen, Ward Radio, and Greg Mattson are basic ass Mormons. Middle, basic, run-of-the-mill Mormons. I've been saying that about Jacob forever, and I don't even like believe that chart that he had there because we've all done the test of that chart. It's a crappy test. But
yeah, we're progressives.
Yeah, we're progressives on that sort of thing. But I've always believed that Jacob is just aggressively 90s Mormon guy that we all knew. That's how I describe him.
Yeah.
Comment that in various parts of their language supporting it. By the way, Levi and Amy did make the comment that at least in some instances, Kwaku tends to counter what they're saying. So good for him in those moments.
Kwaku is the most, he loves the Tate stuff. He loves that online sort of deal. And I promise you, he's not the one getting up saying my wife's my better half out of all those guys. In fact, he's the one running through women. Come on. He's tating them up.
Moments. There are, at least in some instances, Kwaku tends to counter what they're saying. So good for him in those moments. There are some church, Levi mentioned that there are some church talks that speak contrary to this movement, but they are not landing or being utilized by this group. And Levi and Amy Chapman both saw a lot of risk in the church allowing these voices to continue to get louder and louder. One of the things that this culture can run into the risk of is hypermasculinity can turn very quickly into violence and abuse. And so they noted that. So Amy Chapman
about Kwaku, because I wanted to ask, are you talking about Kwaku to the wall with her? That Kwaku?
No, that's not the moment I'm talking about, but that is the Kwaku I'm talking about. There are moments where they noted that Kwaku tried to bring
RFM didn't know what to the wall meant.
Against the wall, yeah.
The volume down of some of the hypermasculinity conversations that centered around some violence. And so they were giving him at least kudos in part. Amy made the note. She said there's a segment of content creators that capitalize on this manosphere. And we named some of them, this manosphere content. And there is a large number of consumers who take in this content. He mentioned that Andrew Tate is one of the folks that's seen positively. By the way, whether it's Quick Media
or Ward Radio right now. Like he is, there's some that are still trying to hold on to him.
Yeah, why don't you ask Quick what he thinks about Andrew Tate?
Yeah, these guys, ask Jacob what he thinks about Andrew Tate, and then ask Kwaku what he thinks about Andrew Tate. Maybe Kwaku's backing off of that now, but Kwaku is who brought Tate to Ward Radio. He's the one who brought him up all the time.
Radio, they noted that those folks have mentioned Andrew Tate's voice as authoritative in how they're talking about the culture.
No, they don't. Nobody thinks he's like what has Tate said that's authoritative? Like what? Like he follows what other people say that seems to work. He hasn't said anything original ever.
Him a bunch of times in positive light as well. And so there's that. And then she also said that allowing these voices to lead again, to be seen as valid by church leadership is concerning to her. They were noting risk in a separate part of the conversation when speaking specifically of Ward Radio, Quick Media, Jacob Hansen. She was speaking about how those voices being allowed to lead and people thinking those voices have some level of validity or authority is concerning to her. And Levi agreed. Now, that's the gist of the podcast. But I just want to note here, I wanted to just point back at the LDS Church and say, I know you want to sort of parse it out and play someplace in the middle. And you don't want to upset your conservative members and you don't want to upset your nuanced members too much either. And you try to play some sort of middle ground, often avoiding the questions that you self-stated that you avoid the questions you don't know how to answer. But I'll just note things in Mormonism that from the outside looking in are concerning and do contribute to not only patriarchy, but to voices like Jacob Hansen feeling like he is safely within the church when in reality he might be positing a voice that's as much outside of the church as any of us. One is male exclusive priesthood authority. Women's voices are secondary in church governance. Presiding over the family doctrine. We mentioned the family proclamation earlier. That's one place that these voices constantly point to. Number 3, obedience to male leaders as spiritual imperative. Polygamy as a divine principle. We saw in that cartoon recently that just trying to wrap that story in a faithful way was risking deep harm to children to learn the story that way. Modesty doctrine and sexual control over women.
It's a good thing they don't try to do any sexual control over men.
No.
Yeah, that doesn't happen in the church.
Yeah, I'm so glad I didn't grow up feeling sexually constrained at all.
Obey the law of their husband, as their husbands obey the Lord. Number 7, the eternal destiny of women is dependent on a man. And I will note that Elder Oaks gave a talk about women having...
And the eternal destiny of a man is dependent on women.
Priesthood authority a long time ago, somewhere around maybe 2010 to 2013, somewhere in there. And when he gave that talk, if there was one place towards the end where he spoke about women, and still to this day, their eternal role is to pop babies out in the spirit world. And that is the extent of what they do. So there's that. The eternal destiny of women is dependent on man. Women's role in childbearing is theologically
it's also literally important.
Women having babies. Ugh.
Wait a minute.
It's like,
women's role in childbearing is theologically essential. It's
I refuse.
biologically essential.
I refuse to live in a world where having babies happening is essential. I refuse to live in that world.
The other thing is like, because they make such hay out of this. Like, women have to have to obey their husbands the way men have to obey God. Like, well, women can throw a fucking dish at their husband's head and scream and yell and lock him out of the house and destroy him. Like, men have no recourse with God. Like, if men don't like what they're getting, you're just stuck with there's no recourse. Like, women can fight with their overlord. I don't know. Just the way they frame it is it's just so stupid. Like, I brought it up a bunch of times before where, like, if you listen to these dingbats, you would think that being Mormon is like being in the Taliban. No, not at all.
I'm gonna go on a limb and say something that I don't usually say, because I don't tend to blame Mormonism very hard for things going very extreme, even though through history they obviously deserve some blame for that.
You can blame it for its men being cucks.
Yes, but Forrest was trying to make the point just this week on Thoughtful Faith, all those guys, that Mormonism allowed for Ruby Franke. And I usually don't like to go down those routes. I especially don't with the Laffertys, although you have to say, like, the Laffertys, yeah, it was a little bit Mormonism that did it. It's just, it's very, very rare. It's extreme. Ruby Franke's extreme, but I'm going to have to agree with Forrest. But what the part of Mormonism that allowed that is the easily trampled men, you know what I mean? Which I think is a part of current Mormonism, as opposed to this hyper patriarchy, which is really weird, because it's like this backfire, because I still agree that the way it's set up, somebody could still be a Bednar, like we talk about. You can say, well, the words say that we should be Bednaring this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like they don't listen to their words at all.
Yeah.
The words will be like, the husband presides over the house. He has the final say. He reports to God and she reports to him. But nobody does that.
But there is something about that Ruby Franke thing that seems particularly Mormon, that no Mormon man stood up and said, yeah, your weird spirituality and your hyper morality going on right here, your moral panic going on right here. No, I'm going to stop this, because that doesn't happen in Mormonism at all. Like, they just say, yes, dear, woo-hoo! and it's totally like a Mormon thing. It really is.
Essential. That's why women are there. And number 9, my last one, and I think the most poignant, at least to me, criticism of leaders is wrong. And the leaders who cannot be criticized are always men. Hence, female voices can never criticize men's voices. And so I'll just note, I do think we're in a
doesn't add up.
Yeah, that's not how that works in real life.
Only that, like, even on your own thing, no, that means that women's voices can never criticize leader voices. They could criticize the voices of leaders or non-leaders that are men, but that's just not even true anyway.
My mission president was a jackass and was always implementing rules and things that just made everybody angry and crazy, and everybody didn't like it, and everybody pissed and moaned, and nothing ever changed. But the one thing that he did that got overturned inside of a week was because in the White Handbook, the recommended schedule said that we should have dinner at 5:00, and because we normally had dinners later at like 6 or 7. And so he's like, all right, we're going to do the 5:00 thing. That's the new rule. And it was the women of the church who were like, no, we have jobs. Our husbands have jobs. Like, we're not even home at 5. We need time. Right. And like, it was literally the women saying, no, fuck you. You're a jackass. We're not doing it. And that was the only time that he reversed a stupid decision. Right? Like, so there's just this whole idea like, oh, women have no power. Yes, they do. Like, they don't have it on paper, and like, because you can turn this also around. It's like all of the priesthood power it's all magical. None of
Right.
it's real, right? Like, and so they completely overplay this, like there's actual real power there, and that if a man in the church said, by the authority of the priesthood, wife, I'm going to tell you what to do, and if that didn't get out, and that guy wouldn't be ostracized and talked to, and said, no, you need to be nice to your wife, jackass, right? It's just the way they frame it. Again, like they frame it like it's the Taliban, and no, it's not anything like that.
I always I bring it up every time we talk about this, but that go to Google, go to General Conference addresses, and just type in LDS women are incredible. There's a talk with that title by Quentin L. Cook. See if you can find me a male counterpart to that.
Yeah.
If they
Men
were
are
allowed
doing a
to
great
swear,
job.
they would say men are pieces of shit. But it's... Do you
Yeah.
remember dreading going to priesthood session?
Oh yeah.
Especially you guys probably didn't get
I
this.
dreaded going on a mission my whole life.
Oh yeah, so did I. But like going to priesthood session was always miserable, especially like during my formative years, because that's when internet porn was huge.
And so all they did is talk about that.
Yeah, all it was you guys are watching too much porn and it's so dangerous and blah, 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 blah.
Listen to this. This was just on John DeLynn today. And this gal was talking about her Mormon story, and these two had been a little naughty before marriage. And then she says this.
But you know, I wasn't looking for a husband, but we ended up meeting and started dating. And I think the only thing that was not anything more than
Wait, they had
Bishop
sex.
was like,
They had sex before they were married?
They had a little bit of sexy time, but hold on.
What, did he have sex with her brother or something?
No.
I'm getting from my bishop, by the way. It was so amazing because I felt so bad and so guilty.
What are we trying to find?
And we weren't doing anything crazy, but I said, okay, can you elaborate on that? And he said, yeah. When I was a bishop, if I had a couple that was getting ready to go to the temple that had gone up to and beyond oral sex, he said, then I would deny them the temple. And he says, but up until then, he's like, God doesn't expect you guys to, just go from holding hands. And that kind of
this is Paul H. Dunn gave him a pass for hand jobs, I guess. Yeah. That's what he claims. But the gal gets interrogated by her bishop here. I'm trying to find that part. Listen to this.
Family friend, he always treated me well. But the one thing that he did that bothered me is when we would have those interviews, he'd always blame Kevin. Like, you're going to ruin this, as if I was a non-participant ever. Like, of course I would be pristine and wonderful, but he would be awful.
Interesting.
And that's one thing that really bothered me.
What a misogynist.
Yeah.
I mean, I still love the guy. Like I said, he's a family friend.
Why did that bother you?
It bothered me.
Why
because
did
it
that
was
bother
not-
you? Why does that bother you? Like, you should you be happy that you had all your agency taken away and you get absolved of all sins and it's the guy's fault?
We're about to blame patriarchy, aren't we?
Giving me any
Well,
ownership
John's going to try to steer to that. I don't think it's in her mind at all.
for my own actions. It takes two to tango, as they say. And so why would it be his fault if we did do something wrong?
Yeah, and it's kind of too like you're devoid of
that.
sexual feeling. Like clearly you know what I mean? There's an assumption there.
Right.
Yeah.
You turned it around, Margie. You got to turn it around
The
there.
woman's over here trying to take responsibility for doing a thing that at the time she thought was wrong. She's like, no, it was not just on him. I was there too. I'm a moral agent. We both screwed up. And so do not put this all on the man that I love.
How dare you not call me a dirty slut?
Yeah, and then Margie's like, it's like he didn't even think you wanted to fuck. Like he just took that away from you because you're a woman.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me see if I can find it because listen to this.
Justified friendship based. Like I had a friend that was a Protestant and she said that her parents loved her to be friends with the Mormons because they did the good things. And then like my best friend in high school was a total slut. I remember she had her eyes set on this guy.
She sexually explored.
that's what she said about me too.
Yeah, that's what she said, Margie.
Yeah. She got upset that
Explored, or was she sexual?
She just couldn't call her a
colonizing-
slut, I guess.
She was a colonizing imperialist with her sexuality.
She was a sexual pilgrim.
Yeah.
She was a sexual colonizer.
Anyway, back to this. This is almost over, this one.
In the world. And I think we're in a cultural moment in the church. And I think both are trying to figure out, pushing against each other. Where
That guy also had some stuff like he grew up in San Francisco and he said where they bus to schools. And he said it was strange because we didn't integrate very well. We just kind of fought between the races. I go, okay, buddy.
where the middle ground is. And so I think it'll be interesting to sort of follow along with how Mormonism decides to be rigid and how it decides to loosen up. And we'll see if it ever does put its foot down, and I don't mean this in a violent way, I mean a cliche way, but put its foot down on the throat of these kinds of voices to sort of send a signal that this sort of hyper-masculinity isn't any more healthy than going too far the other direction.
Well, I think it's a no.
What?
Tell me about the other direction.
When do we go that way?
Well, ideal, Bill, but which of these 9 things are the top leadership in the Mormon Church not promoting?
Yeah, they're promoting all of these. And if they really ever want to get to if they ever do, and maybe they don't, and I certainly don't think they do at this point, but if the Mormon Church ever does, somewhere far off in the future, want to get to a place of balance and fairness and equality.
You're in the Longhouse now. You are in the Longhouse now. You don't even know the water you're swimming in.
It'll have to change almost all of them.
I was trying to look at these critically as you went through them, and I pretty much have to agree, really, in some, to all of these as being things that the LDS Church does. It says it contributes to the Manosphere. I see this as actually creating the Manosphere, and that's why the people.
Shut up!
The guy
I don't know what that is.
No, him.
Andrew Tate.
Yeah, I mean, how does he not think that he's a Mormon in good standing when that's what the leaders teach?
And just this guy's not a Mormon at all. No more a Mormon. Jordan Peterson's not a Mormon at all. This is just the main out there that those
he's converted to Islam. You guys ready to talk about that? Is Islam good with women?
Wait, did
you guys talk about
was
that
RFM
thing?
telling a joke, or did he actually think? Tate
No,
was
he
a
actually
Mormon?
thought it. He doesn't know what's going on at all.
Oh, okay. Well, he doesn't know anything about Tate then. So I guess I'll back off him a little bit because.
And Bill Reel's hardly better, but that's why I just kind of joked. I mean, I think my comments probably right here. I just said to him, "You cornballs talking about the Manosphere is about as comprehensive as Quakers talking about the perils of washing machines and murder robots."
Going too hard to the conservative side or pulling from to justify their perspectives and their behavior.
Well, I can see why anybody who is a Mormon would think I'm totally in line with the leaders of the church by holding these views.
This sounds a little arrogant, but
We trafficked women, you fucking dolt.
With Andrew Tate, he runs online porn. He runs online porn in cam rooms, and that's what he's arrested for. Like, you guys.
Class in a nicer way, and it would sound perfectly fine.
And has been and continues to be. Absolutely. I'm rewatching The Handmaid's Tale. I don't know if you guys have ever watched it. I feel like I'm watching the prequel on the news, right? But yeah, it's just like that, isn't it? There's a lot of that. There are a lot of parallels. And I watch podcasts.
parallels.
I see this rhetoric. The rhetoric is kind of presented in a way, we don't have to be nice anymore. Jesus wasn't nice. Let's make Jesus mean again. Meaning that you don't have to have these niceties. You can stand up for what you believe, even if it's not popular. And a lot of it is this trad rhetoric that can be extremely dangerous. And of course, it's supported by almost everything you would hear at church. And women support this too. I mean, that's
Tate the Islamist is pro mean Jesus. Thanks, Rebecca Bibliotech.
what's interesting to me when I look at faithful social media. It's not just men, it's women too, who are maybe their own worst enemy, also supporting this.
Well, strangely, and we're not going to mention the name, and I know you don't want to mention the name, but it's a person that I know that you know who's a man who's a member of the church and has some degree of notoriety. Not a whole lot, but some people know. And apparently he's gone off the deep end on his, what is that? On what channel does he have where you keep sending me things, Rebecca? And we go,
which one?
No, I just going hyper masculine.
Yeah, it's a thing. It seems to be a popular thing to do. It's a pervasive view, I think, and it is again supported by almost anything you could find in the handbook or anywhere else.
Who on earth could you be talking about? That's not Quick, Jacob, or
dude. I hate it when people do that shit. I know you don't want to mention his name. Just say the name, you fucking dip.
It's Voldemort. That's why.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know the.
I do that all the time, but I usually only do it when I'm protecting Jonathan and Kevin.
I know. Well, no, I'll do it if I'm trying to keep someone's secret, but he's like saying we shouldn't utter the name.
People would have to go back and like put the two things together, but that's just because their guys have popped up on here before, and they would, in most of those cases, I think that they'd be fine saying it if they're the ones here saying it. But I'm not talking about like their channel, you know.
Church doesn't silence that voice, just like it doesn't silence a progressive voice that talks about Mother in heaven. Officially, you know, all the voices of the restoration are
well,
going
to
use
Fiona. We were talking about Fiona in Brigadoon right before the show.
Brigadoon. Just this.
Of our own lives. So that is coming up. And then very quickly, The Good Book Club, new book, April, Homo Deus, an excellent, excellent book, A Brief History of Tomorrow by Yuval Noah Harari. Hard to say. Anyway, if you guys want to join us, start reading
that.
that.
Who wrote that book that I never read called Sapiens?
Sapiens. The book that started the Good Book Club.
In this case, Bill or RFM, your obliviousness is envied. Harari again, huh?
Hi, everybody.
And a lot of people call that the post-Mormon or ex-Mormon Bible. And
the ex-Mormon Bible, Sapiens. Oh, I like this that Douglas Murray said on Chris Williamson this week.
But it's so captivating, right? This is what I meant when I said, have we progressed beyond peak woke? Because it seems to me like both the hyper woke and hyper anti woke thing is capturing so much of the attention.
No, I'm so bored of these people. They're so ridiculous. Can't spend any more of my life listening to them. I don't want to listen to the slowest kid in the class. I don't want to go at his or her speed. I don't want to talk to somebody so mentally impaired that they think that we are a weirdly hermaphroditic species. That the clownfish is a useful species to interpret behavior of human beings. Like, we can't go at this speed. No.
It's all so tiresome.
I love him.
Born of the internet age, we had hoped that we would get so much farther in the 21st century. And here we are with this stupid society slowed down by maniacs debating the first thing we knew, boy or girl. Like, no, not going at that speed.
I always love how he frames it like that. The first thing we knew.
Yeah.
I actually had this exact conversation with a friend like a couple weeks ago. And somehow this got brought up, and he's like, Do you think maybe we're almost done talking about trans people? And I was like, maybe.
No, because I guess we could go to it now, although I want to get to Jacob because that's what everybody's waiting for. Maven brought on a gender, what was he? Scientist, specialist, something on Latter Daily Digest. But I think he is ideologically down the line somewhere like our friends going at that speed there. But he's not all the way at that speed because he dispelled her of social constructionism. He doesn't believe in social constructionism, that's just a huge major step in any sort of direction. He noticed and said there are obvious biological differences between men and women. And it just is. And you can be scientific about that just being part of the world. And the way is almost kind of like when Kendall Christensen was talking past the cell with her too, of like, you got to assume people aren't coming at you just trying to be evil.
Except for these people, right?
Yeah, except for the people. Well, I kind of caught what you're trying to sell to me there, and I want to go ahead and push back and argue it and say, but I do want to think of them as evil, and that's what I'm going to do. But yeah, that guy just talked past the cell of the social constructionism that no, there's differences between the sexes. This one, what are the stuff you remember between Jacob and Alex O'Connor?
I don't remember much. I only watched like the first 10, 20 minutes or so, I think.
You didn't watch the whole thing?
I watched the whole thing.
I thought you said you had certain things you wanted to comment off of. Do you want me to look up things? The things I would notice is the tithing stuff, Book of Abraham stuff, calling stuff weird.
The tithing stuff's like a technicality, I guess.
I think it's a technicality too.
It's like technically, yeah, you don't have to pay tithing unless you want to go to the temple.
Well, one thing that really stood out to me that I thought was just typical, just classic. I'd say classic Jacob, but it's really just classic religious apologist. But we're talking about anachronisms, and he goes, there are two reasons for anachronisms: mistranslations, translation errors, and I can't remember the first one, but you
can pull it up.
But it's just like
you're not saying the other one isn't lying. That's not the other one, right?
Yeah, the third option, Jacob, is that they were making it up. And they made an unintended mistake because they didn't know better.
Quoted to by the Book of Mormon.
So in the Book of Mormon, you have anachronisms. Like, we all know that. What's really interesting is there are, and I'll get to the horses. I just want to kind of talk about anachronisms generally.
Did they get to the horses? I don't remember getting to the horses.
Translation error.
Because this is part of a bigger subject of there are anachronisms in the Book of Mormon, and we're like, yes, there are. But
so what do you mean by anachronisms in the Book of Mormon?
Anachronisms are things that shouldn't be there. For example, the Bible has anachronisms. For example, talks about Tubal Cain making iron tools. That was before the Iron Age, right? So, or it talks about candlesticks in the English translation of the Bible. when candlesticks didn't exist in first century Palestine. Okay, these are things that don't exist, don't belong. Now, how there? So anachronisms can form because of two reasons. One is that they could just be an apparent anachronism. So it's something that we don't think is there, but actually is. So, for example, there's been a bunch of these. There was in the 1960s, I think there was this giant list of anachronisms in the Book of Mormon. And since that time, due to more archaeological discoveries, I think like 70% of that list has shrunk. Like cement. They said there was no cement in the ancient Americas. And then
So we've covered all that before on if that really has shrunk that far and how much there's still left to go, because there's certain things in there that, you know, unless it's real, they're not going to pop up. You know what I mean?
Discovered it. Go on.
No. Go say what you're saying.
I was going to do it when he gets to the next type of.
Okay.
Right. So some of these are apparent. The other thing that you can have are what are known as a translator's anachronism. This is what happens with candlesticks. Candlesticks didn't exist in first century Palestine, but the word that best conveys it to the author is a candlestick. That's sort of the best thing you can do to convey the idea. And the Book of Mormon is not a.
Okay, what do they call it? It's the loan shifting stuff, right?
Yeah, well, he's calling it translator's anachronism. And like, here's the thing. If I'm being charitable, I would grant that for a few different, like maybe if you describe the wrong type of metal. Like he said, they had steel swords, but steel didn't exist back then. I'd be like, well, okay, like I can kind of accept that. But then it gets into things like horses. Like that has to refer to a specific thing. Like, because it talks about people riding them around into battle, pulling chariots. And I hate it because whenever you bring this up there, I was like, there's actually not a scripture where it said that they rode the horses into battle or that the horses pulled the chariots. Okay, but there's a verse where it says that there were horses, chariots, and a battle. What am I to assume? I'm not the stupid one for assuming that those horses pulled those chariots in the book. And so there can't be really a translator's anachronism for that one, because the closest you come is your tapers.
Is that he flat out, like, he says it's all loose translation. Like, he basically, like, I don't remember exact wording, but he discounts tight translation. He basically says it's all loose translation, which I thought was kind of fascinating that he'd actually say that.
Yeah, because usually Apologists are happy to go between both of them.
Yeah, most apologists will do what works best in the moment. But yeah, he's just like, no, it's all loose translation, which is also a little bit like, okay, then that's not actually a translation, really. Like, and also he talks about how, like, he basically cops to the fact that, you know, it was all by inspiration. You know, like he brings up a bit like Book of Moses, because, you know, Alex asks, like, you know, okay, well, Book of Mormon was plates and Book of Abraham was papyrus. Where'd the Book of Moses come from? And it's like, and you know, to his credit, he just goes, hey, Revelation. Like, okay.
Well, there you go. That's acceptable enough if you got God talking to you.
Yeah, I guess.
It makes way more sense. Makes way more sense than Abraham, because Abraham, he had an actual scroll and it had nothing to do with anything that he wrote down.
Yeah.
So Moses is way more theologically sound.
So I don't know if these are all technically perfectly different, but when I asked ChatGPT, it came up with about 10 different reasons you might come up with an anachronism. And later editions or edits, oral tradition influence, that it was orally written, it was orally passed along, and then it wasn't written down until much later. And those guys, the later people, created the anachronism. Limited historical knowledge of the ancient authors, didn't have precise historical records, and included objects and customs that they were writing about. Both of those would be like kind of the anachronism would still be pretty old, the thing that's in there, not like modern, you know.
My favorite apologetic method they use on anachronisms is the cope, the anachronistic cope. And it's where I've seen them do this a lot on Word Radio, where they'll talk about, like, we're discovering more every day that, like, shortens that list and shortens it. Like, for example, previously we thought that horses were not in North America for like until like 100,000 years ago. But recently they've found horses in North America, a horse ancestor from 80,000 years ago. So it's just getting closer.
But that's also checked off.
All right, that's a cope, but
but then that's also checked off the box. Like if it's a quick list, and some of them are checked and some of them are X's, they put a check on that.
They check the horses off. We got horses.
Yeah, they check the barley that way because the barley that was found was that
78,000 years too early, but you know.
Yeah, the barley was that old too. The barley wasn't
really.
The barley is like really, really ancient and not. But there's the same with like the lightning tapers. Like I just asked the ChatGPT, could a taper pull a chariot? And it says no, a taper couldn't pull a chariot. The size and strength, temperament, they're solitary, shy, and not easily domesticated. Their body structure, they're short, not suited for harnessing. Lack of historical use. There's no evidence that any civilization ever used tapers for transportation of labor. But I was going to get to the other ones. What did I miss? Literary symbolic choice, translation errors, mythical or legendary elements, and then it says forgery or fabrication and pseudepigraphy, later editing or tampering or misinterpretation of the past. But that's just ChatGPT, which lies.
Does ChatGPT even have the Holy Spirit?
No. I could ask it.
It might have the light of Christ, but I don't think it's been baptized or confirmed.
Do you have the Holy Spirit or the light of Christ?
As an AI tool, I am programmed to stay neutral.
I don't have a soul or spiritual awareness, so I don't possess the Holy Spirit or light of Christ. So we can't take any of those answers. However, I can discuss these concepts and their theological significance if you like. Are you exploring a specific question about them? Should I be afraid of Andrew Tate?
Are you a woman in Romania right now?
That depends on the context of your concerns, your age, and how likely you are to be on a sex cam. Oh, no. Influence and ideas, personal safety, media sensationalism. Okay. Let's see here. Tithing. So I get the arguments on both sides of tithing because it's totally true. Everybody knows you're not going to get kicked out of the church if you start faulting on your tithing.
Yeah, but you're also not going to get kicked out of the church if you drink alcohol every day.
Yeah. But one of the points is like we did have to tell people to commit to that to baptize them, right? On the mission.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if they didn't say yes.
For a week.
Well, I don't know that they ever even had to do it. They just had to say yes.
Yeah, they said to tell us they were. But no, we had a week rule. Like you had to.
They actually had to pay it?
Well, not pay tithing. No, you don't have to pay tithing until you're actually a member. I'm saying with like law of chastity, alcohol, coffee.
Oh, yeah, that stuff. Yeah, for sure. But like I remember I had a guy that was all poor, and I don't know why this didn't happen more often. And I felt like all terrible about like, this guy. And I remember talking about tithing. I was like, are you going to do tithing? Tithing? Is it fine? Okay, you said fine. All right, moving on to the next thing or something like that. But then the second he got baptized, he said, I hear you guys give food and you pay rent. Like I'm telling you, like the second that he got baptized, and just said it directly to me like that. Like, I was like, really? And I felt bad about asking about the tithing. And I knew they weren't going to even have tithing money anyway. Like they lived in like this dirt hut and they collected their water in a big green toxic barrel or something.
People should think of it as a translation that was done into King James English of the 19th century, according to the vocabulary available to Joseph Smith, as a functional translation. Not like a tight word for word type of translation. If anyone has ever read, and this exists in the Bible already, like we have.
Yeah, he said.
The narrative that we're being spun
is a translation that was done.
Went back up. How does this stuff sound? Because I was wondering that about the Book of Abraham stuff. Because do you think there's anybody out there who ever got a major testimony of the Book of Abraham hearing all the worst of it from the start? Or could there only be a testimony having heard the myth and then getting filled in the other stuff afterwards and having not lost it?
Yeah.
It would be
it'd be pretty tough. Well, I don't know. Honestly, I think if the church just went full on with the translatory medium narrative that they do, where it's like this papyrus was this spiritual connection that he was able to I don't know, he was able to channel this and it was able to inspire him to write true. Yeah, it was a catalyst. And like Jeffrey R. Holland basically says that, and it's pretty much the only argument you can use. And so I think if they leaned full on into that and even like demythicize Joseph Smith just a little bit and say he probably thought he was literally translating what was on there. Like that's probably, if you hear it that way, maybe. I'm trying.
Does that person exist? No, but it could feasibly. Hypothetically, maybe.
Main areas that I want to talk about in the time that we have remaining are, I think I have 3 points of criticism, which are probably the most, not just the most common critiques of Mormonism, but also probably the critiques that give people the most pause for thought as Mormons. These are the kinds of things which cause Mormons to leave the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Do you want to know what? Like, I don't know that anybody in my immediate family still knows the Book of Abraham problems.
Yeah.
I don't know that they do. I don't think they do.
That one's got to be like the most damning, right?
Yeah, I think that's why everybody brings it up so much.
And even Jacob cops to that being like one of the toughest things to account for.
Yeah, and he said he repeated it on Steve Pinecker's. I don't know if he just released something today on his own channel saying he's reviewing it. Which I haven't watched yet. But it's pretty tough. I mean, I wasn't able to get to any more CES letter stuff again, which I'm going to finish, but I didn't do any more of it this week. But I want to kind of like try to, because we were all bringing it up saying like, how good was it or not? We were so far out of it. We've forgotten like all the stuff, but then we hear every single thing. And I'm not going to hear or read something that you guys will be like, oh yeah, I remember this thing. Oh yeah, I remember that thing. Oh yeah, I remember this thing. And smoking guns. Do you want to know what? I listened to, speaking of anachronisms, John DeLynne's Mormon Discussions, like the 50-something episodes of that. That Mike guy, he's probably like more thorough and better than the CES letter. And that's probably why John DeLynne put him on and put them there, because so he could take the credit for all of it or something. But he went into like a big anachronism just for like 2 hours on just the Deutero-Isaiah problem, that the Book of Mormon didn't know that there was multiple voices, and then came out and they found out later that it was multiple voices, and that makes it a problem, and that some of the writing in it wasn't even created until well after they would have been in the Americas. So how did they bring that book with them if that book didn't exist yet altogether as one? And then some of the issues too is like they would have had to been carrying with them, like whatever they got from Laban from that murder, they would have had to been carrying a handcart that weighed a ton of all the different amounts of plates that were on that.
I don't know. I saw the Living Scriptures. They just kind of picked it up and ran away.
Touche.
Nephi was strong. Okay.
Hey, that's my Mormon Forrest Gump story, is that a very old, dear, close family friend, his uncle made the Living Scriptures, and I've been to his house.
Wow. Choices. This is why Jacob stays away from truth claims. I mean, I think it's true, but I mean, he says on the Steve Pinecker episode, which I know is true. It's one of the things that's always come up, is that he's not going to want to. He talks about the levels of belief, and he doesn't want to talk to you about random weird Mormon beliefs and tell you by the original beliefs, which I think he's somewhat right about that. It might work. And I think Alex O'Connor kind of recognizes it the other way as a dunk the other direction, which is if you want to believe the supernatural stuff, well, then anything goes, and mine's not worse than yours, which I generally sometimes kind of wonder about that, which brings up like the Book of Abraham, because the Book of Abraham, obviously you have to swallow a whole lot extra, but do you think maybe we're too close to it? Maybe we're not. Do you think the Book of Mormon itself is necessarily that much more of a big ask than the Bible?
Yeah.
You think it's necessarily
Well,
bigger?
I mean, some of the Bible, but like there's biblical people that like we know actually existed.
True. But like just the story of an angel bringing plates. I mean,
no, if you
that's
buy
just
the
as-
supernatural stuff, then yeah, that's believable. I'm talking about like the historicity thing.
that there's actual history.
Yeah, there's actual history behind the Bible. There's not behind the Book of Mormon, but the supernatural stuff, yeah, that's anything goes, really.
Yeah, true. Truth.
Most certainly maybe not the most famous, but the most talked about at the moment, the most sort of hot topic, is that in 1835 there is a traveling mummy exhibition. Somebody's discovered a bunch of ancient hieroglyphics and mummies, and they're touring them around. And Joseph Smith meets this dealer and decides to purchase, I think, a couple of mummies and some Egyptian hieroglyphics, because he identifies that these Egyptian hieroglyphics are in fact what he calls the Book of Abraham. That is a story written by Abraham about like his early life. And this is an extraordinary find, right? Like a new biography of the patriarch Abraham. And so he takes these hieroglyphics and he miraculously translates them, because, you know, we were just beginning to discover how to translate hieroglyphics. The Rosetta Stone had been discovered, but on a different continent, and most people didn't know how to read these hieroglyphics. So Joseph Smith starts translating these in 1835 and pens what becomes the Book of Mormon, which is now still part of Mormon scripture, right? It's part of the Pearl of Great Price, which is part of your scriptural canon. The problem is that we thought we lost the papyri that Joseph Smith had bought in the Great Chicago Fire, whenever that was, in the 1800s, I forget exactly, but it was assumed that the papyri had been lost to time, but we still had Joseph Smith's translation. But then, in the 20th century, I think, the Metropolitan Museum of Art discovers that in their vaults, they have some of the Joseph Smith papyri, and they identify them as such.
I want to point something out, though.
Church.
I want to point something out, though, here. I want to make sure that you recognize that you said they found some of the papyri. Yep. Okay, so this is one of the things, is that people believe that we have all of the papyri that Joseph Smith originally had, and that actually is not the case, because there was papyri that was lost in that fire, so far as the records indicate.
So
this whole line
now
that
we
he
can
takes
translate
is
it.
so weak.
Some grasping.
Well, because his whole thing is like, well, we don't have all of it. We don't have all of it. Yeah, but we have the part that is in the scriptures where it says this is what Joseph Smith translated from this.
Yeah, well, and it's like if we lost all of the manuscripts of all comics and books, and I did a translation of Harry Potter based on this one page, and then it comes back and they're like, actually, it was talking about Spider-Man. It's like, yeah, but you didn't get all of the pages. The rest of them, that one talked about Spider-Man, and they're like, yeah, but that's the one you said talked about Harry Potter.
He really stresses that, like, well, there's other parts. Like, okay, yeah, but they're not the parts that are reproduced in the Pearl of Great Price. Like,
you want to know what's weird? I still haven't gotten back around to the Kinderhook plates, and it's kind of one of our running jokes of like, somebody's covering the Kinderhook plates again. But I just recently somewhere I heard Jim Bennett scoff at the Kinderhook plate problem. Like, this is as lame as the Kinderhook plate problem. He said it like that. I can't remember exactly where. And it made me go, wait, what? Okay, now I got to go listen. I can't wait to get to that part of Jim Bennett's Kinderhook plate apologetics because I don't know like what he was getting at when he said that.
Well, he's not getting at anything. He's doing the same thing that Ward Radio always does, and just acts like these problems have been debunked already, and
it's over.
Just be stupid.
We already know.
Believe it. What do you mean? There's a pretty big problem. If I remember the Kinderhook plates correctly, somebody faked them and then sold them to Joseph Smith, right? And he started writing a translation of them.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait for what it is because it's been a while since I've read the apologetics.
What's the apologetics behind that you could possibly do?
That's what I'm excited for it now because he thinks he nailed it.
I know. If I were an apologist, all I could really say is like, yeah, they fooled him.
I wonder if ChatGPT could tell me what Jim Bennett says about how does Jim Bennett explain the Kinderhook plates. Here, we'll get this playing while I'll let it cook.
And Egyptologists look at the Joseph Smith papyri and they recognize them almost immediately as basic funerary rites. In other words, having nothing to do with Abraham, not mentioning Abraham, not even coming close to saying anything about Abraham. And so the problem here is that the Book of Abraham has been translated by Joseph Smith from hieroglyphics. And when we discover those hieroglyphics, the ones that Joseph Smith actually owned, and we look at them, there is zero mention of Abraham. You've already just preempted there one of the responses that LDS members give to this, but will you at least admit at the beginning that this is one of the big factors in causing Mormons to question the validity of the scriptural tradition?
Oh, for sure, for sure. I often say that the Book of Abraham is probably the biggest one. My issue though is that it can be exaggerated. It's a highly debated topic, and people make claims about it that aren't correct. So first of all, they say, well, we found the source text of the Book of Abraham. It doesn't match. It's over. False translation. First of all, that's just not true, because we don't know if we have the source text of the Book of Abraham. What we have actually are two things. There's the text of the Book of Abraham itself, and then there are the facsimiles, or sort of like drawings that accompanied it. Okay. Yep. So within these facsimiles, they are so it's the difference of the analogy I like to use is like a children's book, right? So imagine you have the children's book, but the text has been torn away. You don't have that, but you do have on the left a drawing, and you need to interpret that drawing. Now, Joseph did offer interpretations of those drawings. Okay, and those interpretations that he offered don't match entirely with the Egyptological understanding of those texts or of those drawings. However, he did get several things right, which is really interesting, because he should have gotten nothing right, such as the crocodile, the water that's underneath is the heavens above. There are these boxes near the bottom that he said were the pillars of heaven. That is actually the proper Egyptological interpretation. There's these 4 jars in one of them, or 4 figures that he says are the 4 quarters of the earth, and that is actually correct. So there are things that he gets right in it, but there are things that he does not get right that contradict the Egyptological interpretation. And so what are we to make of that? Well, first of all, there needs to be an understanding that these drawings come from the 2nd century BC. This is during the period of Hellenization, where there was a lot of mixing of Egyptian religion with other religious traditions. And so there's sort of this mixing of iconography that can happen in those situations, that we know did happen in those situations. Even Jesus's story, for instance, about Abraham and Lazarus. Oh shoot, I can't remember what it was from. In the story of Lazarus and the rich man, I think that's Luke 16. Yeah, that's what it is. There's a mixture. That's actually an Egyptian story that Jesus is utilizing, and he's using Abraham, for example, as he's actually replacing Osiris in the original story. So in the original story, Abraham isn't Abraham, it's Osiris, and Jesus is using an Egyptian story to tell this, to give this parable. So there was a mixing of that. So the analogy I like to use to kind of explain this is, imagine that you had a group of Christians that were living in India, and they began to use Hindu iconography to tell Hindu iconography to tell Christian stories. So like, let's say you have a boat, and in it there's these 12 cows, and Vishnu is walking on the water. Like, you could see how a Christian would look at that and say, this is the story of Vishnu, right? Or I'm sorry, no, this is the story of Jesus walking on the water. But a Hebrew expert would look at that and say, no, you got it wrong. That's Vishnu. So that is one of the challenges that you run into when you're trying to analyze this, because you're not interpreting the text, you're interpreting sort of what do these drawings mean to the people that are looking at the drawings.
Sure. So the Joseph Smith papyri that we have, that we know that Joseph Smith owned, we know were part of the papyri collection from which he translated the Book of Abraham, contains facsimile 1. Like we have the actual facts, the image, this drawing that we're talking about. We actually have one of these in the papyri that we know that Joseph Smith owned, that we know did end up in the Book of Abraham. That first facsimile is interpreted by Joseph Smith as depicting Abraham sacrificing Isaac. And I tell you what, we'll put it on screen so that people can.
It actually isn't Abraham sacrificing Isaac. It's the story of Abraham being sacrificed by the Egyptians, or an attempt to sacrifice him, which actually is corresponding not only to the Book of Abraham, but it also corresponds to ancient apocryphal works that Joseph Smith had no access to.
Okay. So my mistake about what it represented there, but it does represent Abraham being sacrificed. That's what we say, or attempting.
Correct. Abraham, not Isaac. Correct.
Now, Egyptologists interpret this as a standard Egyptian funerary scene known as a lion couch scene, right? You also agree with that? And this depicts a deceased person being embalmed or resurrection by the god Anubis.
And again, yes, but I would also dispute that there is a great debate on how standard this particular one is. So this is something that's actually pretty disputed, at least amongst Latter-day Saint scholars. I'm not an Egyptologist here. So one of the challenges I have with this is I have to defer ultimately to experts in this field, but I know that there is some debate about how standard of a funerary text, or I'm sorry, how standard this lion couch scene is. And also, a lion couch scene that would be normally typical could also be interpreted differently depending on the context, right? So it's a tough one, because we don't know how the people that were looking at this image would have interpreted it specifically. There's a lot of assumptions that are being made about that.
It's interesting that Jacob is not applying the collective Egyptologist model. I don't know why he's just leaving that out, but okay.
If everybody knew, this is my companion on the mission. He got this tattoo on his back the day he got his mission call.
Wait, really?
Yep.
Like a permanent tattoo?
Yep. Still there today.
I mean, that's a cool tattoo.
Okay, but so as in the Book of Abraham, chapter 1, verse 12, so like right near the beginning, it says, and that you may know, and that you may have knowledge of this altar, something he was just describing, I will refer you to the representation at the commencement of this record. In other words, referring people to the facsimile at the beginning of this record. So if we have the Joseph Smith papyri with the facsimile, and we know that that Joseph Smith papyri doesn't mention Abraham, and given that in the very first chapter of the Book of Abraham, it says, well, I'll refer you to the image at the beginning of this text. Surely we know that Joseph Smith is mistranslating this Egyptian papyrus, right?
I would push back with this. I would say it doesn't necessarily mean that the text that's being translated refers to the same, like the images are part of the exact same text. So there is some disconnect there. With that in mind, there is another way people go. I'm agnostic, by the way, on the two theories to account for the Book of Abraham. Okay, there are two. One is that we're missing the papyri that he originally translated from, and with what you had just brought up, there is the theory is if you're going to go with the missing scroll theory, that this record at the beginning, the facsimile, that it doesn't necessarily have to be connected to the exact same papyri that the record comes from. Okay,
but then before talking about the second response here, does that mean that we're sort of supposed to believe on this idea that, like, there is this text, this Egyptian record that begins with this inscription of Abraham, like a drawing, a facsimile of Abraham, and then is just like a random, unrelated funerary text, and then gives a biography of Abraham afterwards? Like, it seems very strange to me that even if there was this missing papyrus that was part of this text, that I mean, it would make sense if, like, the thing that we discovered, it wasn't the Book of Abraham, but it was some kind of religious thing, or it's some kind of, priestly ordinance or something. But it is just a standard Egyptian funerary text. It's like a sort of bog standard Egyptian text. And yet that is what I'm supposed to think was like the preface of the Book of Abraham, with
I don't
Abraham
remember
being on top of that random funerary, right?
This is also something that Joseph Smith himself could be interjecting into this, an expansion of what the text is. Like he's interjecting his own commentary into this. So I don't. There are multiple. No, meaning like he's saying refer to the record at the beginning of this.
That's Joseph Smith saying that.
That's sort of a Joseph Smith interjection. I'm not saying that is the case here. So the reality is that I agree that there are challenges that you have to deal with, right? And there are other interpretations of this. This is a widely debated subject. Like I have a hard time with it because I don't have a strong position on the Book of Abraham and exactly what theory best accounts for it. But I do know that one other theory is that it's a catalyst theory. This is that Joseph Smith himself was, he found these and they inspired him to have a revelation that he believed was connected with these, but it wasn't.
Could it be possible for Mormons to take up the argument that Joseph Smith, all the Book of Mormon claim happened just like that, and then all the Book of Abraham claim was he got a bunch of hubris and got up his own ass about what he could do and tried to do it again and failed?
So wait, you're saying the Book of Mormon is so the Book of Mormon's true, but the Book of Abraham isn't? So
yeah. Could they take that line of argumentation that he got a bunch of, especially after he started practicing polygamy, baby, and he got hubris that he could pull off again what he used to be able to do when he actually had the spirit, but he didn't have it so much anymore? And
they have a Joseph Smith problem, and they don't seem to have this with any of their other prophets. They're very able to throw Brigham Young under the bus because it's very difficult not to. But they'll pin things on Brigham Young that were Joseph Smith things. Like, I mean, that was what it was told to me all the time with polygamy, was Brigham Young started polygamy. That wasn't Joseph Smith. It shouldn't make all that much of a difference because they were both talking to God. Like, it was either way God told them to do that. It shouldn't be a big deal which one of them did it, unless I'm going to go to the Michelle Brady Stone route and decide that Brigham Young was a piece of shit and Joseph Smith was amazing. But I don't know. That part of the problem with this is that I do think that if like their catalyst theory is their only hope here, and I'm thinking part of what pissed a lot of us off about polygamy, like people my age especially, I think, is that like me and a lot of other people were told it was started by Brigham Young. And so when we find out that no, Joseph Smith did it, it's kind of a shock. It's, if I had been told from youth, yeah, Joseph Smith had all these additional wives, and it wouldn't have been that shocking to find it out. But hiding it makes it sound like it was a bad thing. And so when you tell me, actually, Joseph Smith did do polygamy, then my mind says bad thing because you guys hit it. That it's now he did a bad thing. And so maybe if you introduce this is funerary text that Joseph Smith used as a catalyst, and he thought that it was, and he thought that it was this, but God was just giving him inspiration or whatever. Maybe you wouldn't have that shock, You know, if you were raised on that theory.
Yeah, a gajillion years ago, I remember reading, I think on Reddit way back before Reddit was complete shit. There's a guy talking about how he lost his faith in the church. And what he talked about is that, like, it was when he learned, like, you know, I think he said he was in college, UV or something like that, and he was doing a history report or whatever, and he was learning how to do original research, and he came upon the actual history of what happened at Carthage jail. And he learned that Joseph had a gun and fired back. And, you know, and he talked about how, like, he wasn't bothered that Joseph had a gun and fired back. He was bothered that nobody ever told him.
Yeah, I know.
You know?
That was one of the
that was the thing that really got to him. It's like, and, you know, it's like, and you know, I think it's fair. You know, he just kind of had this moment of like, well, wait a second, what else aren't they going to tell me? You know, because like, why won't you like just that? Because like, you know,
see, well, there's a good example of it because
he should defend himself.
Yeah. That's a good example because that's something that I grew up knowing. Like, I knew he had a gun and fired it. I don't know.
That's
remember?
funny.
You knew that one?
Yeah, I knew that one.
But you didn't.
I didn't know that one till after.
Yeah, and so there was no shock in it. So I can't even compute that being shocking because the first time somebody told me that bothered them, I was like, they were trying to kill him. Of course he shot back. What's wrong with that? And then they're like, well, but why didn't they tell me that?
Yeah.
It's just because, like, and the only reason I think is because it's a little bit less than like a lamb to a slaughter.
It is,
but not really. Like,
what is? But it's also, it's kind of like I was saying. It makes me think you hid that thing because you thought that thing was bad. So my brain is thinking that Joseph Smith did a bad thing.
Guess what Jim Bennett's argument, according to ChatGPT, is?
What?
Guess. I'll give you a little bit of a hint. If he cried while saying it, I might think he was redheaded.
What does it say?
I have no idea. I don't know enough about the Kinderhook plates.
It's a Michelle Stone argument.
Oh, everybody who said about it was just lying?
Yeah. Joseph Smith, some historical accounts suggest that Joseph Smith examined the plates and may have made a brief statement about them, but there's no solid evidence that he attempted to translate them by revelation, as he did with the Book of Mormon. Statements attributed to Smith about the plates come from secondhand sources, making it unclear whether he took them seriously or dismissed them.
Okay.
We love our secondhand sources when they say nice things.
Yeah. I mean, that's every single one of Michelle Stone's arguments, which that came up again this week because RFM did a whole episode about the Nauvoo Expositor affidavits, kind of hinting at 132 already existing.
Well, not only that, but they wrote it in the Nauvoo Expositor with like the exact words.
Shut up, Jared. But the affidavits also back that up, that it already existed. And so he like put it out as a dunk, and he made, this is one of the goofier things I ever saw.
Oh, Troy says Kinderhook plates are where Zelf got his name?
Yeah.
I thought so, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because
Well,
Zelf was, they said,
Yeah,
no,
Zelf
Zelf was the person that they found buried like with it, the fake person.
Oh.
Like,
then there's James Strang came up with was it the Vori? Was his guy like he?
Yeah,
he
Troy's talked about that quite a bit, I think.
Zelf was a white Lamanite warrior. They just reportedly discovered a large burial mound near the Illinois River, which excavated and uncovered human bones, including a skeleton with an arrow embedded in its ribs. Joseph Smith reported a statement. Several members of the Zion camp recorded that Joseph Smith identified the remains as Zelf, a righteous Lamanite warrior who had fought in the great battles.
They're going to test that skeleton, and they're going to find out that it had vitiligo, and he's going to be vindicated.
How does Zelf relate? Was it to the Kinderhook?
Mm-hmm.
Zelf and the Kinderplates are both historical anomalies, but they are not directly connected.
Yeah, I thought Zelf was just a random.
I thought it was in the same place that they or that the guys came and like supposedly like said, "Hey, I found it over here by the same place that the Zelf stuff was." But
I don't know. We're bad Mormon historians.
So one of the weirdest things on Earth is number one. This is some sort of like criticism that I'm like not that critical about, but I thought it was just really strange that on Mormonism After Dark last Friday, RFM and Bill just like really bragged that they had made one of the classic episodes of all time in ex-Mormonism.
Oh God, they just did the Hitler meme.
Well, yeah. But not only that, like RFM bragged about it being like feeling like he really touched his inner artistry.
I bet. So this meme format is fucking hilarious. I'll say that. There have been some
It's
really
been around since like 2006.
It's been around a long time, and there's been a lot of them that I love that are really funny. I am not super confident RFM and Bill Reel being very funny on this.
Well, I mean, I'm telling you, he kind of laid it out there like he was in touch with his inner artist, like big time for this one. I'll show you. Hold on. Art. But they were really happy about that episode with the girl that exposed the inner workings of the church. Like they were pretty sure that was an all-time mega classic in ex-Mormon expositor stuff.
Really, the only people that fired up against Mormonism was us, because it just showed the managerialism in it.
Yeah.
Apropos here, I think, because honestly, the businessmen that get promoted to the leadership positions, with few exceptions, I think have nothing of the arts about them. They're very numbers and letters and very logical, very business oriented. I'm not trying to judge them, but I'm just saying that's the impression I get. And it makes me think of this quote from the Merchant of Venice, which I'll abbreviate here. The man that hath no music in himself is fit for treasons, stratagems, and spoils. And yeah, I edited out a clause there, but just to make it a little more direct. Yeah. So that's when I hear those words from Shakespeare, I hear truth, and it resonates with me in the deepest parts of my being.
Yeah, this is one that's been on my mind lately, sort of along the same lines. Not Shakespeare by any means, but Albert Einstein, no lackey, you know. Unthinking respect for authority. Unthinking respect for authority is the greatest enemy of truth.
How do I get to the part?
Did another fucking plane caught fire?
It did?
In Denver.
Really?
Yeah.
What is going on with the airplanes?
I don't know. It's probably Trump's fault, because he
yeah.
fired a
Folks
bunch of probationary employees.
Refresh their YouTube video and go into the YouTube synopsis for the video. You'll see that there's a link there to RFM's video. It says something about Hitler learns that polygamy is real. And click the link. It'll take you to this. The moment Hitler learned that Joseph Smith actually practiced polygamy. I watched it today. I watched it twice, actually.
Really?
And I did. And there are just moments where the body language on them and the thing you have them saying is so when some people stay and some people go, that it was so good. So I really enjoyed it. So it's not only in the synopsis, by the way. It is now in the comments. I'll put it up on the screen.
Well, I'm just telling you, if you listen to that whole episode, there's some part where he says he tapped into his inner artistry to make one of the most common memes of.
You remember the mission or the magician dad in South Park?
Yeah.
We like to have fun here.
It's exactly what it
We
is.
like to have fun here.
Yeah. So just kind of teasing the boomer-tasticness of all that. I mean, it's not like the biggest criticism in the world. It's just both saying that you'd hit a home run with that. I thought it was a fine episode with that girl, but it
got a real
an all-time classic.
We got a real nifty knee slapper for y'all here. Just watch.
Are you ready for it? Because Michelle Stone did, well, she re-released her answer to the affidavit thing. And, you know, so they dropped this dunk and they didn't realize that she was going to dunk right back on them the next day with a 2-hour answer.
Es ist dem Feind gelungen, die Front in breiter Formation zu
Michelle Stone was on the verge of winning.
Im Süden hat der Gegner Zossen genommen und stößt auf
But she was unexpectedly attacked by RFM and she was completely surrounded.
Stahnsdorf vor.
Lamer than I thought.
Der Feind operiert jetzt am nördlichen
RFM revealed the Nauvoo expositor affidavits.
Stadtrand zwischen Frohnau und Pankow. Und im Osten ist der Feind bis zur Linie
It
Lichtenberg-Marsdorf.
showed their similarity with the DNC 132. Does anyone else want to read it? Let's go.
Yeah, sure.
It's going.
But this doesn't mean that Joseph Smith did in fact practice polygamy.
Mein Führer. RFM. RFM has proven just the opposite. Joseph Smith did practice polygamy. Nein!
Glauben. Guess what I found out this week? Listen to these names he reads here.
Clear the room! Quaco, Jacob, Carden. You three stay.
So when he reads those names, he says Krebs, Keitel, something like that. I've heard this thing so many times, I almost have it memorized. But I looked up each one of those commanders, and one of them was like the dad or the uncle of Oppenheimer's wife.
Really?
Yeah.
Scheiße.
Scheiße. Dummkopf. Du bist ein Dummkopf.
Joseph Smith practiced polygamy? Are you fucking kidding me? Michelle said we could trust Joseph. A man doesn't lie about marrying other women. Just like he doesn't lie about stepping out on his wife. I thought these were dynastic feelings that had nothing to do with sex at all. Mein Führer, Joseph carefully worded denials. Don't tell me about carefully worded denials. Mein Führer, Michelle said Brigham Young started it. Joseph was lying his ass off, that horny son of a bitch. He was shagging everyone in sight. From Fanny Alger to Eliza Snow to Zina Huntington to Martha Brotherton. More than 30 women he married. Freizig. All behind Emma's back, even his own wife didn't know. Some as young as 14. Some already married to other men at the time. If Hitler's just discovering it, why is he announcing it? But Joseph would send husbands on missions. And while they were nice and way, the cat would play. Even the farm animals weren't safe from Joseph. I can't believe I bought into this. Obviously, Joseph practiced polygamy. What was I even thinking? Even the church topic essays say so. How did I ever get mixed up with Michelle Stone and a merry band of conspiracy theorists? She has made a laughingstock of me. It's okay. I'm sure the farm animals were safe.
Doesn't it not make sense to have Carden, Kwaku, and
Yeah,
Jacob as his soldier, as his generals too? Because they weren't Michelle Stoners.
The whole thing doesn't really make any sense because they're like,
he
look,
overplayed it.
We found out that he practiced polygamy, and then Hitler just quotes the CES letter.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I gotta go to work early in the morning. I better bail before I get sucked into the next thing. What's the next thing?
I could go to.
Oh yeah,
somebody called me a Nazi for transgender stuff.
It's not Mormon. Well, it might be Mormon related, but the crazy shit going on in Utah, where
the guy
many weeks ago, a fire chief got arrested for inappropriateness with kids, and then this week it comes out that a judge is in trouble for inappropriate with this with kids, and the thing is, the fire chief got put out on bail, got bail from this judge, and then it turned out that fire chief and judge were collaborating with inappropriateness with kids and had a sexual relationship with each other, and now there's a second judge that might be involved in this, and it's all unraveling, and it sure looks.
Is it going to be covered by all the Mormon newscasts that it's Mormon related?
Well, that's what I wonder. Probably. I'm assuming because these guys sure look Mormon, and they come from very Mormon places.
I just don't understand that. It's like the FBI or the whatever organization had all those sexting things going on. I feel like if I were a pedo, I would never tell it. Like, I'm not gonna go to my colleague and be like, "Hey, let's talk about this. It's pretty hot stuff, huh?" I mean, like,
that's the thing. I guess that's the thing about like compulsions. Like, I've always been completely baffled by people who get in trouble for looking at ordinary porn at work.
Oh yeah,
on work equipment. Where it's like, what the? Why? Like, really? You can't go 8 hours? Like, it just seems crazy to me. But like, that's just it. Oh no, like another thing. Like, I mean, just read the news, and about once a month, some guy gets busted for voyeurism. In public restrooms, which is like, what, really?
Wait, how? Like, what is it? What do they do?
Just showing his dick to people, or
well, no, like trying to film under bathroom stalls, or even literally
just like putting like a small camera in there.
Yeah, or no, this week a guy got arrested somewhere in Salt Lake for just literally going into the girl's bathroom and peering over the.
Just walked in.
Yeah.
Yeah, has this guy never heard of
He told the
porn?
police he had to really pee and got confused about what bathroom it was.
Well, this is like the Chuck Berry thing, because didn't Chuck Berry get in trouble for putting cameras in the women's restroom in his restaurant or something?
Is that? I don't know.
Did he?
I'm pretty sure.
I didn't know that.
Berry?
I'll have to confirm that at some point, because I'm pretty sure that's what happened. And when I heard that, I was like, but you're Chuck Berry.
Controversies.
Why would you want to stare at ladies taking a shit when you're Chuck Berry?
Yeah.
You're like the king of rock and roll. Even into your 70s, you could have gotten any woman you wanted.
Well, if you want nightmare fuel.
1990, Berry was sued
walking.
by multiple women who claimed he had hidden cameras in the restrooms of his restaurant, the Southern Air in Missouri. The lawsuit alleges that the camera recorded customers' employees without their knowledge. Authorities later found videotapes in Berry's home appeared to contain footage from the bathrooms.
Jeez.
Yeah, no, the Ian Watkins one was.
Yeah, the Ian Watkins. That's nightmare fuel.
Yeah, that's
What's that one?
That's the Lost Prophets lead singer. He
yeah,
got
Welsh band.
He got a fan to let him rape her baby.
I have heard of that one.
Like infant. Like
and he just completely he just was an absolute psychopath who just happened to be the dumb luck of getting into becoming like popular music guy. It's funny because like I don't think any of their music is even on Spotify, because I was like, I wonder what they sound like. Like, I wonder what kind of music was it?
You probably heard the song Rooftops. That was on the radio a bunch.
I don't know. I might
But
not
you wouldn't even like it. It's mostly kind of emo, angsty stuff.
Oh, that doesn't sound like fun. Alrighty, I'm gonna bail before I get.
Did you want to say anything about Charlie Kirk on Gavin Newsom?
That was entertaining.
Yeah,
like, it's kind of hard to tell. Like Gavin Newsom, because like sometimes he was like consciously lying, you could tell. But there's other times it's like, are you really this disconnected from politics? Like what people are actually believe and are saying? That was, I mean, to his credit, he was pretty nice, and he let Charlie talk a lot.
Yeah.
And like also, I think Charlie Cook is a world master of the whole never interrupt your enemy when he's making a mistake. Because like, it was annoying how much Gavin Newsom stepped on Charlie Cook trying to make points, but like he was being such an ass when he was doing it, and like was just like the other analogies, give them enough rope to hang themselves. And Charlie Cook was just amazing. He just sat there and grinned and smiled as Gavin Newsom just made a perfect ass out of himself. It was really amazing.
They brought up the book stuff and the book bannings, and Gavin Newsom was one of the persons that I would have pointed to when we invited that Christian Kindle dude to come explain us the book banning situation, which he said that he had the facts and people won't listen to the facts on stuff like that. And Charlie Kirk was able to talk to Gavin Newsom on the facts. And Gavin Newsom is one of the persons who had put out a tweet, and in the tweet, it showed him standing and fake reading some of those porny books on hand that we're talking about that were not banned. They were removed from elementary school. They were removed from public elementary schools. That's not a book banning.
It feels like a Randy Marsh bit. Like, we can't even put pictures of blowjobs in elementary schools.
I thought this was
America. This is America, man. But once again, Christian Kendall said that he could talk people to the facts on that, meeting them on their level, and I'm willing to have that happen for us. But they had that discussion. You can go listen to it with Gavin Newsom, because Gavin, it was really weird. Gavin couldn't like push back on anything, even though he gave like a total politician answer about the transgenders in sports.
Yeah.
You know, but here, look, I found a thing with RFM saying that he got inspired.
These Hitler rant videos. There are those out there who know what I'm talking about. Maybe those who don't. It's a huge fad. I mean, there's probably millions of these
Like
Hitler
15
videos.
years ago.
And all you do is you take the scene from a movie. I don't even know what the movie was, but it has Hitler in it, right? And it's a scene where he's getting some bad news. He gets upset. And it's like a 4-minute scene, right? But what they've done is they have made it so that you can put in your own subtitles. They're speaking German, right? They're speaking German, British accents. They're speaking German. And so you have to have the subtitles. And there were subtitles, I'm sure, in the original movie released in, English-speaking places. But, oh my gosh, I just got on a roll.
You know what Inglorious Bastards is?
I've been euphoric.
It wasn't Inglorious Bastards.
It's from Downfall.
Downfall was the movie.
Oh,
All
I thought
right,
it was
I'm going to bail while I can.
Okay.
If this were church, I would have been inspired by the Holy Ghost in what I was doing, because it was coming to me and I'm loving it. I'm working it out, but still it's coming to me and things are happening. And then I realized that this is the first time in I don't know how long that I've done something creative. And when that thought came to me, within the past hour, by the way, when that thought came to me, I thought, what are you talking about? You're creating podcasts all the time and ideas and this and that. And I stopped myself and I said, yeah, that's one form of being creative. But what you're doing is you're organizing information. It's research, it's organization, it's management. It's not being creative, like being able to come up with lines that another character is saying in the story. Other people do that. What we try and do is stick to the way it's actually written in the history books and not put words in the mouths of dead people who can't speak for themselves. So, but here I could, because it's supposed to be funny. And it ended up, I think it's great. And the great news is that we can't premiere it here.
So later, he didn't get that because he wanted to copyright it and say it was his, and Bill had to explain him that he couldn't copyright.
He wanted to copyright it?
Yeah, he couldn't copyright other people. He's like, but I made it. It's like, no, you didn't make the movie.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
That's funny. All right, maybe I'll get off his back a little bit, because
that's just straight boomer teasing. That's all that is boomer.
It is,
teasing.
but it's also, it feels like he's discovering that glee.
Yeah,
of shit posting.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
he didn't do it very well. It was clumsy, but hopefully he gets really big into shit posting.
August 10th, 2006 was the first downfall meme from Know Your Meme. So it's 19 years old, this meme is.
I've been sitting there trying to, I swear, I thought it was Inglorious Bastards for the longest time. Now I'm an idiot. I made
That
fun of
actor's
RFM.
dead? Wow. I didn't even know. June 7th, 2007. One of my friends made this for like one of my friend group around that time, like at the beginning of Facebook. That's like one of the oldest memes there is around there. But I don't know. It's sort of boomer cute. It's sort of boomer cute.
Yeah, get into it. Get real big into shit posting, and I'll back you up. RFM.
So, how do you think Michelle Stone? I keep asking you to guess, but I know that every single time I ask you to do that, you think too hard about what the answer is. How did Michelle Stone answer the affidavits thing?
Well, I think I've heard her answer the affidavits thing before. So, are you just talking about like what the Nauvoo expositor wrote?
No, I actually don't know what she says about what it wrote in there. She says it's just not close enough. It's not really that close to 132.
I think it was pretty close. The argument I heard her use before was that, of course, they had the exact verbiage because Brigham Young
wrote it. Yeah, they wrote it.
Brigham Young used they already wrote it, or Brigham Young used it to write later, and the preemptively legitimized it by saying, "See, they knew that was what was in Joseph Smith's thing." So it's not a terrible, terrible theory if you presuppose all of the other bullshit.
And so the affidavits, how do you explain the affidavits?
I don't know. I don't really know what the affidavits are.
The affidavits were just affidavits about what happened in the Nauvoo Expositor, but they also said that they had read the section 132, the people who were kind of like testifying about like what happened around the Nauvoo Expositor stuff. and there's affidavits saying that they'd read that.
Oh,
and RFM made that video showing like Duncan, like I won about this, and then Michelle
the
re-released the
people-
video the next day. Like
the people on the affidavits were enemies of Joseph, so they were motivated to.
you got it.
Okay, yeah.
Saved everybody 2-3 hours there. Yeah. Here's the gal that I guess she still runs around with him, but she was like 15, and there's a video of him like beating her and
really
like that when she's underage. Yeah.
She still hangs out with him.
Yeah.
Jesus, what a fucking idiot.
Hey, look at this. Jacob's starting to do quick travel stuff.
Mm.
Well, we should go. Momentum 26 West Coast travel.
Let's get a ticket for Flip, like, for his birthday or something.
That'd be funny. Let me see here. Let me show you how you are.
You know what's funny? A big Mormon thing just happened. Mormon-ish related thing just happened, and I didn't even watch it. There was the Lori Vallow 60 Minutes thing.
Yeah, I showed a clip before it came out last week, but you didn't watch the whole thing?
No.
I watched a little bit of the John DeLynn episode about it. It sounds like she's just off her dinged rocker.
Oh, yeah, she's absolutely nuts. I mean,
that's about the whole entire thing. I saw some stuff with, I mean, I guess I have clips of it. I could pull them up, but a bunch of, so the American Heart Association backing up the sodas should be part of food stamps type thing at Congress. And I saw some ladies, I have videos of both of it, some who go over Utah bills, and they were practically crying and saying that they were in some sort of hell that a Utah bill was passed to block using soda for food stamps. Like, it's just so ridiculous that that's part of the stuff that they think that they got to help save the poor people to make sure that they get.
I know. Well, that was a bill in Idaho recently passed, and the comment section was hilarious because, you know, a lot of it's people being like, "Yeah, good," but then there's a shit ton of people, and they're like, "Oh, so poor people aren't allowed to have treats ever?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't want to buy it for them," and
Yeah.
also like, it made me add to my growing list of human rights candy. Candy is a human right. And one of the funniest parts was the big Democratic politician lady against it was talking about how, like, Idaho businesses are standing with me saying that this shouldn't happen. I was like, well, no shit they are. They want the state to buy an assload of soda from them.
Yeah.
Of course the businesses that's absurd.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of stuff about conversion therapy this week. I don't know if you saw, and it's so ridiculous. And I think Matt Walsh made a good point on it, but he also had his video where he was talking about it. He said, look, there's going to be a note on here from the Trevor Project underneath my video as I'm speaking, and you can see it like right on the thing. There is one, and it says that conversion therapy is bad, but they have concept creeped in the whole entire idea of transgenderism with conversion therapy of the gays. And
the conversion therapy for gays was never it was never like, well, I don't know, maybe you'll outgrow this. That's most of what it is with the trans stuff, is they're saying you might outgrow this. You know, we're not going to do anything permanent right now. That's not conversion therapy. You're not shocking them or forcing them to vomit when they wear a dress or something like that.
See, it says the Trevor Project says conversion therapy refers to a range of dangerous and discredited practices aimed at changing one's social orientation or gender identity or expression. But then he pointed out, which is true, that it is conversion therapy to not get on board with the conversion of the gender of your child. So you are converting them to not convert. Is how that works, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. They'll always just take pre-packaged demonizations and try to concept creep in there. I mean, We talked about it ad nauseam. I'm sick of them even mentioning it. They did it with racism, sexism, all that shit. Nazi, Nazi is a pre-demonized term for good reason. And so if you can concept creep some things that have nothing to do with nationalism, socialism, or anti-Semitism, then you're golden. They do that with conversion therapy too, because conversion therapy, another highly demonized phrase, and I would say rightfully so, especially if you look at the stuff that they did in like the 80s or whatever at BYU. That was shitty, like making dudes vomit while watching porn, or watching gay porn, and it, if I remember correctly, all they really ended up doing was making the guys averse to all sexuality at all. It's like they didn't make them,
it worked against all sexuality.
Yeah, it worked. It made them not gay anymore, but it didn't make them straight. It just fucked them up.
Yeah.
But yeah, that should be kind of shat on, I'd say. But like saying, I don't know, maybe you'll outgrow it. Maybe let's wait to cut your boobs off. You're 14. You're conversion therapying me by not actively removing my body parts.
Yeah. So I made a well, speaking of that, since we're on Daily Wire, what do you think about their push to free Derek Chauvin? Have you seen that?
Yeah, I have. I don't know. I know Mark Dice is cynical about it, saying that it's just a stupid
grab and they're not going to do it.
Well, he pointed out that like he thinks they're being misleading because Trump can only pardon him of federal charges, and I'm like, no, they know that. Like they mentioned that. Like I've seen Ben Shapiro say it a bunch, and he's like, and we know he can only pardon him of federal charges, but like, I don't know. I still think it's I think it's a pretty good thing. Like,
yeah. I think they said I forgot what they said. There's some angle they could go at it with the state charges afterwards, but it is true that.
Well, it's even if you can't get the federal, even if you couldn't get the state charges thing, that it would be kind of like a symbolic thing, and that would put pressure.
For sure. So I noticed this in Cara Burrell's most recent Haitian orphan abuse, Tim Ballard's darkest scandal exposed documentary, where do you remember the story of some village, I think it was in Ireland or something, to get rid of the snakes? They paid to get rid of the snakes, and then it caused a problem in that people went and started breeding snakes.
Yeah.
Which is actually kind of the same story of Blood Meridian, which I've always brought up. Like that whole story is about the Glanton gang that was getting paid for scalps of natives in the West right after a war, and Mexicans. And then they realized real quick that they weren't really good at checking the scalps, so they could take any scalp. And so they just started taking all the scalps because there was money in scalps. She noticed here that down in Haiti, there's all sorts of charity-like places that realized they could fake charities to get USAID money, places like Tim Ballard's thing, and they did not take care of the kids at all. And in fact, they'd kind of funnel them around from place to place and film them behind cages to just get more money and stuff like that. And that they caused more, just like they said that Tim Ballard caused the sexual abuse where he went, because if he went there looking for it, he would drum it up from somebody who otherwise wouldn't have done anything. But he'd go ask somebody like, hey, could you get me some kids? And then they'd be like, well, this American's gonna pay some money, I'm gonna go get some kids, thereby creating the scenario.
Yeah, that's kind of that's a lot of criticisms of like the Chris Hansen sting operations too. Sometimes they say that he creates situations that wouldn't otherwise be there, but I think with his, it's a little bit different. I don't know.
Yeah, because I mean, it seems like those people, if they were just fishing around on the internet, they'd come across somebody. And
the problem ones are when he actually, like these guys are on a dating app and they're looking for women, and the decoy will say that she's 19 in the app because she has to say that to have a profile. And then when they start chatting, she'll immediately admit, hey, I'm actually only 14. I just had to put 19 on the app. And I don't know.
But in those scenarios, though, it's only the potential perpetrator who's kind of getting jacked with, whereas the other worker is just a decoy entirely. Whereas in these situations, these people are going and probably traumatizing real kids. If they get involved in a sex scandal or not, they're getting dragged away and taken away, or maybe stolen away for money or something, and dragged over to this thing. But one of the things she noticed as well, that these places down in Haiti are fake charities, and they cart around in terrible living conditions kids to make money and realize that they can do it, which is, as we pointed out, I had that meme. Maybe I'll pull up the meme, but
threw the other director in prison to funnel children into their orphanage. And that orphanage, run by Gardy's father, is rife with corruption and abuse, including the rape of at least one child that ended up having to get an abortion. So speaking generally, London-based charity Lumos said many orphanages in this poor Caribbean nation are run by enterprising traffickers who starve and beat children to attract sympathy and money from well-intentioned donors. Horrifying, frightening, not super surprising. Shall I continue with more soul-crushing things? 4 out of 5 children in Haiti orphanages aren't even orphans. That these kids have at least one living parent, but are sold or given away under false promises of an education, medical care, or just the vague assurance that someone will occasionally feed them. So who is running these orphanages? According to Lumos, this charity founded by J.K. Rowling, these homes are not being run by kindly nuns or selfless humanitarians, but rather by enterprising traffickers who figured out that starving children and beating them is great for business because nothing tugs at the heartstrings and opens the checkbooks of well-intentioned foreigners, quite like a tiny malnourished child in need of a rescue. Yeah.
No way, Kara. Good job.
guess what happens, Kara? I know that because you used to follow Gavin McInnes because you were so right wing, but you've gone and figured out that charities can be full of shit. And I bet you J.K. Rowling doesn't even know that her charity is full of shit.
Yeah.
You know? And
why you got a Bible in the background, front and center?
Is it? Where?
Yeah, it's a Bible right behind her, to her, under the camera.
Where?
Do you not see that Bible?
That's what that is. Oh yeah.
Oh, it's right under
the
the
down
camera.
at the bottom. Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess that's good camera stuff. But I think that's funny. That's why I made this this little meme right here. The foreign aid is fraudulent, exploitative, and used for soft power. Doge and Cara Burrell's Tim Ballard investigation. Shaking hands right there. That's the type of crap people are looking into with NGOs and foreign aid. And it gets worse than that. Those are just like the people in the very island figuring out ways to exploit it. But wait until you figure out that the other side, well, she knows Tim Ballard was exploiting it for what he wanted to get famous for. But what do you think USAID is? But I bet you if I went and looked up her Facebook or something like that, she said something decrying the USAID stuff. I guarantee you. So there's that.
Based Kara on accident.
Accidental based Kara, and then accidental based guys on Donnelly. And Andrew Schultz has a new stand-up special that is straight up prenatal all the way through. Pronatal, I'd say. It's about his IVF stuff. And then even when he goes through, it's kind of crass, but he goes through like the whole entire thing of going through IVF with his wife. And then he even wants to keep all the embryos and is trying to, if they are viable.
How crass are we talking? Because does he do swears?
Well, there might be a swear or two in there, but he talks pretty specifically about the process of making babies because he has to go through embarrassing moments of.
I mean, I've listened.
IVF babies. It might be a little bit beyond what you can handle.
I mean, I've listened to Louis C.K. describe his balls on several occasions. So.
Yeah, he describes his junk a little bit in there.
Yeah, he does it really well. Actually, it's funny. Like a big old dong. He said it's big. It's not big in a good way. Not like a thrusty horse cock. It's big like an old man's nose.
Yeah. Well, he was describing a a uncircumcised dong, and he was describing about how it looks like if somebody's like jerking on it, it's like coming up for air in between like that was pretty funny, I thought, but gross. It's just gross. But I don't know, it got real sweet about how hard they had to fight to have a kid. It's so, I mean, but babies are bad, kids are bad, women are, I mean, his wife was just viewed as a baby making factory. What? And that's it? And that's it? What? Oh, so it did seem to be her idea. Like she really wanted to do it, but what?
Well, it's Simone de Beauvoir was right, dude. We can't let women make that decision because too many of them would.
Yeah. I'm gonna show you the beeps. I shouldn't show the beeps.
Particular household, and that is absolutely absurd. Do these people in this home not hear that? Do they not notice constant chirping, which would bug the crap out of me, is going on all day in like 10-second or 20-second intervals in their home over and over and over again?
Sent her my baton, got stuck behind her back like this, and it rolled up her back. I lost my voice when I pumped my arms again. She got hit. She was cutting in when it happened, when she should have waited a little bit longer. But like quick, so she was so close to me that she got hit when I was running.
There's like 3 of them.
So, yeah. Then when I hit her, I kept my baton up and I wouldn't hit her again because she was.
Oh my god! I was like 2 seconds. How do you not notice that? How do you not notice that as the girl? How do you not notice that as either of her two parents?
That was I have a confession.
What's that?
My family growing up was black.
What?
Mm-hmm.
You were born a poor black boy, like?
No, but my parents never changed the smoke alarm batteries, and
they didn't.
Nope.
They'd beep like that forever.
They would beep like that forever for.
And you didn't go crazy?
I did for a while, and then you just kind of don't hear it. My friends fucking hated coming to my house, and they didn't keep at my house. We have a bunch of batteries, just kind of a stock of batteries. So if it starts beeping, I can go into the office and open up a drawer, and there's a 9-volt, and I go up there real quick. But I couldn't do that. My parents never kept batteries on hand. So, and it was great because then I got off on my own and I could replace them all the time. And then a few months ago, I'm sitting there and one of them goes off, and it's like, I always describe this sensation. I need a word for it. When something annoying has been happening for like an hour and a half, but you haven't really paid attention to it, and then you start paying attention to it, and then the collective annoyance of the last
that happens to me in the gym all the time.
Oh, it happens to me all the time. Like if I hear a really loud box fan, I hate box fans so much. Like they're just constant and loud and annoying, and I'll be ignoring it, and all of a sudden I'll come online and I'll hear it, and just the collective annoyance of the last 2 hours, like. But I had that when it beeped on me a couple months ago, and holy shit, it was like a collective annoyance of like 15 years of my childhood.
I can't take it very long, but I've also had dogs for the past 30 years, and if you got a dog, you're not allowed to let it go very long.
Yeah.
You know. But here, look at this one.
Another Kevin Spaniels classic here.
Here. Oh, I miss that.
You're definitely a single woman because you got the single woman tell, that damn smoke detector. How do you live with that?
The way that I've been living with just being a single woman is
no. The smoke detector that keeps chirping. How do you live with that?
Can you just elaborate more on what do you mean by the smoke?
Oh my God.
It keeps going beep.
Like red flags?
That smoke detector that's beeping in the background. There it was.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe I have to replace my fire smoke detector.
Oh my God.
How does she sleep at night?
She's tuned it out. She didn't even hear it.
That's really interesting because it's one of the marks of a cool guy very early in YMH history.
Yeah.
that's always part of their thing.
Well, schizophrenic minds can kind of make sense of a lot of things.
Tune that shit out.
We found another.
I can't believe like how much it goes. I don't know if they're still going because I was like doing some stuff outside and I could hear the neighbors had them going for a while there. I wonder if they're still going. I haven't been out there to like stop and listen to it, but it's been a minute. What's our time? Oh, we should just end on time. I guess we should show some
Yeah,
funny
we keep
ones.
going. Hey, what was the dumbest deep doctrine that missionary companions ever talked about with you?
The TK smoothie stuff was pretty weird, deep stuff that I think I first heard on my mission.
What the fuck is TK smoothie?
The
Celestial Kingdoms. Okay, I gotcha.
yeah,
The Ken doll.
Yeah, which prophet supposedly talked about that? It was
I don't know.
I think it was like Joseph Fielding Smith or one of those guys talked about like, well, you're not going to have your junk if you don't go to this.
Well, it makes sense because you're like, oh shit, we made the worst heaven way too good. Our first guy said you kill yourself to get there. That's how awesome it is. So we need a way to make it not good. Like, okay, guys, here's the deal. We know you stopped paying tithing and you started drinking coffee because you're like, I don't know, the Celestial Kingdom sounds great. Like, yeah, maybe I won't be married, but like I can hang out with my wife, right? Well, yeah, but like that's not the point. Well, here's the deal, guys. If you're in the Celestial Kingdom, you can just fuck all the time. And if you're in the Celestial Kingdom, you can't. And you're like, wait, like it's not allowed? No. It's not that it's not allowed. It's just you're all like a Ken doll. So you guys can, as Chris puts it, bump beavers. But that's about it. It doesn't feel good.
Did you ever see that Black Mirror episode, the Star Trek Black Mirror episode, where they're all in the brain of that guy?
Mm-mm.
And he created. It's one of the best episodes. It's got the Jesse Plemons dude from.
I love.
He's playing
Fat Damon.
Yeah, but he's playing a kind of a classic psychopath Jesse person in that one.
Oh.
And so it's worth watching because it's kind of like him in his classic mode, and because you don't know he's a psychopath. I guess I gave it away, but you find out pretty fast he's a psychopath.
I wish he was in more stuff because he's actually pretty good range. Like, because he plays the psychopath in Breaking Bad and he does it really well. And like Gran Torino, like it felt kind of unnecessary, but he stole the show. He was the best part. And then you go to Fargo season 2 and he's not even close to that. He's like the most lovable character in the whole season.
Yeah.
No, the weirdest, I just remember, what was it? Oh, it wasn't the weirdest, but they were talking about like sort of the infinite gods thing. And they were like, guys, do you think God, when he was on his planet, do you think he was the savior of his planet? And I was like, probably not. Like, why not? I was like, well, just the odds, man. there's probably trillions of people that existed on his planet, depending on how like ours it was and how long it lasted. So I don't think it's likely. Like, I'm pretty sure he was the Jesus of his planet. Well, aren't we fucking special?
Here it is. Look, check it out. So they're in this episode. They're all in the brain of this guy, but they're real. They're created, not in the brain. They're in some sort of like AI computer simulation, but it's so futuristic and so real that they're actually living sentient beings, right? They are created from the DNA of his coworkers. So they're actual clone recreations of his coworkers, but they're stuck in his eternal game that he's playing where he's Captain Kirk. And they're forever stuck in the hell of having to do his little thing. And so then this comes up of
what are you doing? Please don't do that. Don't. Oh my God. Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
This is a wholesome universe.
Yeah, that's one of the best Black Mirror episodes. It's only like an hour long too. I watched that one out. USS Callister, it is called. We'll probably get copyright struck just for those 30 seconds right there. But what were we talking about? Oh, it is Joseph Fielding Smith. It was Joseph Fielding Smith who said that.
Huh.
So yours was that you could be the Jesus of your own. You could be the Jesus of your own planet, or was God the Jesus of his own planet?
Yeah, like was he the savior?
Yeah, I heard that. I heard that stuff. I heard people speculate about that stuff too, but he might have just been average Joe.
I don't know. Maybe it was me. You know,
Yeah.
he did shit posting podcasts and stuff like that, and then like it close to his 60s, he's like, you know what?
He pulls it all together.
Mormonism was right.
Maybe he was a deathbed confessor.
Ooh.
Like he didn't get it going until like the last 30 seconds of his life. Maybe he's like Darth Vader, like he saved his son at the last second, and that's his actual son. And then that's why he was like, "Hey, I could use that again in the future." I guess.
I like that.
I like that idea.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. Maybe he's kind of like I always. They talked about missionaries would talk so seriously about this stuff, and I could never take it seriously. Be like, what kind of planets would you make? Like, I'm gonna make a Dragon Ball Z planet for sure. Like, I don't know why God didn't do that. Like, why can't we fly? That'd be cool as hell. But that's what
I mean, he's got some other planets with that going on, surely.
Yeah, maybe.
Just like this planet, he's like, well, I just want that one to be that way, because you're gonna have like all sorts of planets. You know what I mean? You probably have one like everybody's blue, but sooner or later you're gonna go recreate one that has stuff just like this one, because like, you kind of want to watch it again.
Yeah,
and I want to know what the Jews are doing this time.
I'd just be pissed off. Like, we'd be in like the celestial kingdom talking to the other people from other planets and stuff, and they'd be like, "You guys couldn't even fucking fly in your planet? What a ripoff!" But I'm like, "Yeah, it was a ripoff."
And that's why they kneel down to us. When they always tell us they'll kneel down to us. They kneel down to us because they find out that we had to poop and couldn't fly.
Yeah,
you had to poo. You couldn't fly.
Were you ever told that growing up that people would bow down to you?
Yeah.
But
that was more generation. It wasn't other planets.
Yeah. They were telling us that, like, because when you tell them that you're in the era of Gordon V. Hinckley, they'll bow down, and the implication was because you have to deal with porn on the internet.
Yeah, that's true, huh? Because it was just like a tougher mental thing, not because it was a tougher physical thing.
Like, oh my God, I just had to watch my mom and dad get skinned alive before I was chopped in half and my heart was eaten.
Or even just that, like every single day of my life, I had to wake up and work my ass off to even get enough food for sustenance from dusk till dawn. That's what I had to do. But bow my knee to you. You had to avoid sitting at a computer and looking at boobies.
They probably just wouldn't understand. They'd be like, why is it that hard? and then I would have a rebuttal to him. Like, look, I'm not saying I had it tougher than you. I'm just saying that everything you ever did was so that you could look at tits. And I just could look at them. Like, I could look at more pair of tits in an afternoon than you would see in 3 lifetimes. Okay. So it was rough. Okay. We like looking at tits.
It was never enough. You would always find the next pair of tits brand new and interesting, no matter what. Why? I've seen a billion of them. But what about those ones? You have no idea what that's like. You have no idea. Did you watch this?
Maybe.
I live every girl's an activist, and then I met a girl from like a small town. She was like, I do construction and I don't watch the news, which is like pretty like, yeah. But then I thought about it, and girl construction worker and girl activist is kind of the same job. You mostly just stand there and hold a sign. You know what
I mean? Tim Pool brought up this. I thought this was pretty interesting. This old video from Cracked or something like that. They got a bunch of celebrities. It was probably around Prop 8, which today's Mormon Stories episode was about Prop 8, which I didn't know what it was going to be. Like, I was kind of thought those guys were interesting. And it turned out like they had a gay kid around the time of Prop 8, and it turned into all of that. But did you watch this video? I think you might have posted it. You didn't?
Oh, I didn't. I don't think. Well, maybe I just play it.
Here we are now, dealing with the fallout of how, there it is, that wasn't right. That's a lie.
Yeah, show the
And it's
video.
literally what happened. And that's gay marriage, if we enact these liberal policies.
Jack Black and Jesse Riley.
Sure. Yep, absolutely.
It's a brand new bright Obama day. What a time to be black, a girl, or gay. No, nothing could go wrong. So join us in the song of happy days for the gays. Nothing can go wrong.
Look, nobody's watching. It's time to spread some hate and put it in the Constitution.
Now, how?
Proposition 8.
Proposition 8. Great. People listen to our plea. They'll teach kids about
sodomy.
So,
that's as much as they showed. I guess we could pull up the whole old video, but rack one up for the slippery slope again. You know, I guess we're supposed to be explaining why that didn't happen, but even though one of those books that Gavin Newsom held in that thing does explicitly talk about the ways they can loosen up their anal cavities and stuff like that. I forget which one of those books it was, but that's definitely in there. We've seen it and read it and looked at it, but we just don't have facts. You know.
Oh, fuck.
The slippery slope is undefeated. Undefeated. I don't know. I have a. Have you seen all the JD Vance memes?
Yeah, some of them.
They're pretty good. It's kind of like the Pepe world.
Yeah.
In the sense of you can't tell if the meme's for something or against something.
Mm-hmm.
No, is this for JD Vance or against JD Vance? I can't really tell. Oh, this is somebody posting on such Mormon topics. Just want to show everybody this. Dan McClellan doing some of what he does best, correcting misinformation, apologetics, drop on the general public. Do you like his approach? For what it's worth, I chose to block Flip Johnson, so this can be discussed without Flip's obsession derailing the topic.
They called him a pussy.
I told him I would have agreed to Flip.
Vances
with wolves. Yeah, there's so many of them, but they crack me up. But I don't know what else I got. I got other little funny clips, but other than that, I don't think anything else. Although I always feel like I'm forgetting like a subject that we. I wanted to talk about it. John DeLynn, we were supposed to talk about this last week. He had his little Thrive event. Did we talk about that?
No.
He had his little Thrive event, and he had a little clip. And I know Jonathan just posted on it, and then I posted on it. I also state, it's this. Where did it go? Damn it. Jared just haven't said. Let's look through the whole things there. Here it is. I believe that a huge cause of the political, religious, social situations we're in because we stopped talking or listening to each other. And we commented on that. Jonathan has a little bit more of a reason to be because he was explicitly disinvited from having discussions.
We've all been pretty disinvited, but yeah, it's pretty direct.
Yeah, well, they acknowledge he exists. I mean, he got to a level where they would acknowledge that he exists.
Yeah.
But, oh, look at this. This book is written in English.
Oh, Christ. Christ.
A linguist. Have you seen this before?
We're doing language acknowledgments.
A linguistic vestige of settler colonialism and white supremacy in the United States. It is the language of the victors, and it was used to carry out attempted cultural genocide. We recognize that when we use English to communicate, we are fundamentally bound by the politics of racism, patriarchy, sexism, capitalism, and colonization buried within the English language. Fundamentally, we are trying to use what historically has been a tool for domination as a tool for resistance and liberation.
Oh Christ!
Dude, people, this is a Kyle Kalinske who's totally sane because Elon's crazy. So Kyle Kalinske went totally sane. Putting out a meme here. I'm giving students free glasses in healthcare in Mexico. And Trump, Jeffrey Epstein was my best friend. I'm like, well, gee willikers, we better send all of our downtrodden down there to Mexico, right? Right, Kyle? You dipshit. Like the way he put things out like that, like they think it's an argument. Like both these other places are better than us, and we better let them come here or they'll die is getting so old. I bet I dared my friend I offered him $23 to put this up as his Facebook picture.
Will you offer me $25?
No, because you do it so easy. But I was going to go up from there. Like he said no, and so I'll go $24, $25.
All right. Well, I'll do it for free. Send me the picture.
Okay.
I like that one.
I still with you, Greg. But I wanted to see like what the dollar is, like how many, that old joke of like a woman is like, if I paid you $20 to have sex with me, would you have sex with me? She's like, no. Like how outrageous is that? I forget how the joke goes, but it's something along the lines of like, why do you think I'm a prostitute? You go, because you keep bargaining up and up and up. You go, why do you think I'm a prostitute? And it says, well, we've already established that. Now we're just bargaining with the price, because if they start considering it at all, they are a prostitute. Very bad telling you that joke. I love this one right here. This is how you talk to women. What's going on with Russia and Ukraine? Don't worry, kitten. Okay. Yay.
No, see, that's like not Morgan does the don't worry kitten to herself, because she'll ask me, like, so what's up with Ukraine right now? And I'll start like spurging out about it. She'll, oh my God, why did I ask you that? She'll be like, give me the Spark Notes. I got I'm only like 20 pages into that Scott Horton book, but I've been reading it for hours because I keep stopping to like look up names that he's dropping and watch speeches.
Oh, you're doing a long way. No, I definitely rifled through that. Like on Kindle, you can put on voice to text and it can go super fast. And so I rifled through it. And but I also skipped chapters of stuff that I kind of generally knew. Well, I generally knew and also knew that I wasn't going to retain it. So like if you get to like all those different color revolutions, I've read through the things. I know that there's a name in this side and this side and this side, and the US came in and funded these guys to break it up and crack it up. If I went and listened to it very, very, very slowly, I'm not going to retain it again, and I've read the Wikipedia before. So I'd skip those ones. I kind of just was going like looking for because I know that the US fucked around with all those different.
That is funny watching, because I keep watching the debates that he's had with other guys, and it's really funny to me watching them. They sound like apologists trying to bend over backwards, making it sound like the US didn't tell the Soviet Union that they wouldn't expand past Germany.
Yeah.
But they did several times.
Yeah. I mean, that was the general concept of why we had any sort of peace agreement. And that, again, is what he's asking for in the ceasefire right now. Like he says, no NATO, no talking of Ukraine, doing any more NATO at all. And I forget what else. He had like 4 things.
I don't know why he's so worried. We're the good guys.
Yeah.
What the hell are the good guys going to do to you, man?
But they always bring up the point, and this is a Putin talking point, to say, how on earth would we allow them to come? Well, I mean, I guess we've allowed it to happen in Panama, and now Trump's putting a stop to it. But it's outrageous to think that, because John F. Kennedy never would have done it. But how on earth, if ever Russia or China was coming around and fussing and messing with the elections of all the countries right in our hemisphere, right around us, would we just sit back and be like, better not do anything about that? That'd be bad. We can't say anything. Of course we'd do something about it.
You're just swallowing that Putin propaganda.
Yeah.
My favorite part of one of those Scott Horton things was when he's bringing up like us trying to bring democracy to like the Middle East, and The dude's response was, I think really our problem was we didn't try hard enough to bring democracy to those places. Okay.
But I do like his point that, like, of course, that doesn't mean Putin was justified in going and blowing up and tanking and killing a bunch of people. He had other methods, a lot of other methods, and Scott goes over like a list of other methods he could have used.
That dude's thought about everything, because they'll bring up something that you would think might be sort of a gotcha that he'd be like, well, I don't know. But no, he's like, oh, he could have done this and this and this. Like, and people are really difficult to talk to, because as soon as you say, like, well, of course, this was a possibility that he would react this way, they think that you're thinking in the same good guy, bad guy sort of narrative that they are. And so they'll be like, so you're saying Putin's the good guy? I absolutely am not.
That's exactly the thing of one of the ideas of why I kind of wish the Martyr Made guy wasn't using the language he was, because it's kind of like using 4chan language. And he said 1.5 billion words, and he's 4chan joked like 5 times.
Yeah.
So, but still, like, you wish that they couldn't like demonize like that, because one of the points that Dave Smith and Glenn Greenwald and all those other guys are making that I think is a point that's been worth making, as we've made it a bunch of times, is that everything's not Hitler and World War II anymore. I can go click on my notifications on Facebook, because I have some woman explaining to me right now how I haven't studied history and she's studied history extensively. How come they always start like that? Like, I've studied history extensively, and you don't understand the parallels of the moment of the time, that right now we are dealing with the same exact thing that happened in 1939 to now. And no, we are not. Look, I'll pull it up right here. She kept going at me because I just said, no, we aren't. Well, I can't show people's names, can I? Or could I?
If it's just on a public thing, then I don't see why not.
Oh, where'd she go? Where'd she go? She was lighting me up yesterday, but now I can't find the founder. Here we go. It's on X Mormon. Go to it. It's not going to it. There, I went to it. So look. Somebody said some sort of Hitler thing up here. I said Godwin till the end of time. When someone is literally insisting history with intention, it is entirely reasonable to bring up Hitler and the Nazis about it. At this point, you can literally match Trump and Elon's actions against literal historic events in fascist dictatorships. I'm certain that Trump got his playbook by reading about fascists. He's intentionally placing people into positions where he can continue to do that. It is literally happening right now on the national stage. If there's any time to Godwin, it is right now. We should pull Godwin from the courtrooms of the 90s and show him what those Usenet groups he was talking about led to. But also, Godwin's law was intended to highlight the trivialization of the Holocaust, and that's not what this is. The reason to point out the parallels of Trump's actions to Hitler is because Trump is literally doing a Hitler play by play, and we really do need to be alarmed. This isn't trivialization of the Holocaust. It is warning people that Trump is trying to start another one. And I say, no, it's hyperbolic and ridiculous. And then I get another couple paragraphs, which I haven't.
What's fucking hell. Why didn't she give you some of the parallels?
They'll be as vague as the parallels of the Book of Enoch too.
I feel like if I had these parallels, I'd be like, no, seriously, man, let me show you these parallels. Hitler did A, Trump did A, Hitler did B, Trump did, and they did it in this order and on this time frame.
I made a bet with somebody like 6, 7, 8 months ago that by June, he said by June there'll be concentration camps. Like as I think I showed that to you guys. Said I bet you $500 there won't be concentration camps. And then of course he tried to concept creep what the concept of a concentration camp was, which I saw people arguing about online again. But even under those concepts of concentration camp, he's not doing that either, even if they try to stretch it into just people being detained in places. Because even if they go to some camp like that, they just get deported afterwards. They're not staying in the camps. You know,
Wasn't it nice for like 4 years we didn't have to hear about concentration camps?
Yeah.
Like for 4 years, you'd even get AOC calling them internment facilities.
Yeah.
That was nice. Well, I guess I haven't heard a bunch of it now. Like I heard it the first couple weeks. The first week. He's. I think somebody on his staff realized that the attention span isn't very long. So if you just do a shitload of things right away, it'll fuck them up. Oh my god. Shit. Oh,
I can't believe the time people put into things like this. That's so awesome. But do you need a PSA? Okay, listen to this PSA.
I would love a PSA.
Hey man, we were really rolling. Got a job, saved some money, bought some furniture. Nothing elaborate, but we're happy. Thought it was time to start a family.
We've done okay. Gotten ahead by being do-it-yourselfers. We're young, we're with it, so I got pregnant.
We were really excited. First thing we did was pick some names. 9 months seemed like a long time away.
I thought I had plenty of time to find a doctor, get my immunizations, test, and all that stuff. Figured it just wasn't important.
But it was important. Yeah, we found out it really matters. Our baby was born mentally retarded.
Don't be like us. Take care of yourself and your baby. Find out the facts. Write the National Association of Retarded Citizens.
I just wanted you to be aware of it. Find out.
She didn't get her gynecologist quick enough, so the baby was He's like, if only we could have vaccinated you for Hep B sooner.
It kind of flies. It kind of flies in the face of these Maha people saying that it happens after the birth of the kid is probably something the parents did before. Did you see this thing? Little Yachty called out Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, I did.
First, I'll show this. This was a floating around the guy who was left at the altar because of Black Lives Matter. Did you see that one?
Yeah, we were actually we had that on in the background the other day. That stupid ass show, and
you like had the actual show on.
Yeah, and we got to the part where she's like, well, so like, what do you think about like Black Lives Matter and stuff? And he's like, I just haven't really thought about it much. This is an issue.
That's all he said about it?
Yeah, well, he said he hadn't really thought much about it because he's like Christian.
But it made it sound like in this little thing that he had actively said something mean about it.
No, all she did, I think she just like looked up what his church said about like gay issues or something. And instead of having an off-camera talk with him and saying, look, I don't think this is going to work, she decided to dump him at the altar, which is what all these people do. It's a terrible show where we watch mentally ill people suffer. But like, I don't know why she agreed to marry, because the whole premise of the show is you're in these pods, you can't see each other. You have to get to know each other. So she doesn't know what he looks like. She doesn't know if he's hot or not, but everyone on there is hot. There's never a fat person, so it really defeats the purpose of the whole show. But
they're not forward thinking like that.
But they hit it off kind of, and then she finds this deal breaker out about him where he doesn't really think much about the whole BLM thing. And then he's like, will you marry me? And she's like, yeah, okay. And then they go and live together for a few months until they get married, and they have to decide at the altar if they're going to do it or not.
So you saw this live?
Love you so much. But I've always wanted a partner to be on the same wavelength. And so today I can't. I'm sorry, but I don't want that to be misunderstood. I still love you and everything about you is amazing. Mm-hmm. And I care about you so much. I know that the connection we have is so real and my heart is there. But we talked about a lot of the values that I hold so close to my heart. Making this decision, my mind is telling me I can't. Like, I feel like I know him. Like, really? Yeah. Like, I remember, like, I asked him about, like, Black Lives Matter, and I'm no expert. But, like, when I asked him about it, he was like, I guess I never really thought too much about it. That affected me, especially in our own city. Like, how could it not? How did it not make you think about something? I asked him, too, like, what his church's views are, and he said he didn't know. And so then I watched a sermon online from his church about sexual identity. Okay. And it was traditional. I told that
Oh my goodness.
It's so vapid anyway.
No, well, the thing is, like, she's right. Like, their values don't align. He's a dumbass for like just going through with it anyway. But what she doesn't understand is he was perfect for her. Did you see that? Those wedding decorations? They had fucking Barbie pews out there, man.
Yeah,
he would have cucked over to anything. Another 6 months married to him, he would have forsaken Jesus and gone full BLM.
Yeah. Let's listen to Lil Yachty talk about.
It's just blurry. I be doing so much.
BLM? Because you want to be so black power?
BLM is a scam.
Clip that. Send it to the fucking news.
BLM was literally a scam. They had bought mansions, and you probably wouldn't know anything about it because you don't care about black people.
I do care about black people. Look at my chocolate. You're mad.
It's a disguise.
I think I'm literally the most pro-black person in this room.
Because you have an all-white staff?
They're not white. They're POC. Thank you.
What's that?
I do have a gay, so I also am
gay.
I have a gay on my.
A member of the LGBTQIA.
Point is that I'm
is she drunk?
I'm a divergent.
You are divergent. Did you like Divergent?
Divergent was okay.
I always forget we're near the same age.
It's just blurry.
What are they even talking about, man?
I don't know. Are they both drunk?
That's just the millennials speak nowadays, right? Do you want to do a Spanish test?
Okay.
You think you can get them all?
Probably not. I don't know.
All right. I want to see if you can guess the words.
I don't know.
Hold on. Logró. All right. What's this word?
And I don't know.
Neuro. What's this word? Come on, you're not getting any of them.
What would I possibly get?
Come on, Stan Marsh. Nació. Come on. All right. That was at least a little different.
Yeah, I'm real bad at Spanish.
Niega. That sounds worse than the rule. Niños. You failed.
Mm-hmm.
I think you failed 2 tests there, kind of in a way. One of them was the Spanish, and the others probably you're pretty racist.
Yeah, I've been told.
Yeah. I got told that because I said the chromosomes things. No, I just called a Nazi. I was called a Nazi on atheism, whatever thing, because I said they're the gametes, that there's not a spectrum of gametes. So I got called a Nazi. I just don't know enough about the history of all that stuff.
Yeah, you only know basic biology, which is the gametes, and you haven't learned advanced biology, which is like, nope, none of that. The opposite, actually.
All right, here's a video that just to be one of your favorites. Most embarrassing things to do at the gym.
Oh, that was good. Oh fuck.
Yeah. I might not have that much more. You seen anything funny?
Oh, not that I can think of.
I think I do.
That's okay. I gotta go get my wife on a plane tomorrow morning, which
that's right.
Probably gonna blow up. So you know.
Yeah. Wait, because of all the. You didn't put her on a DEI plane, did you?
Planes keep blowing up. I'm gonna tell her if you get on that plane, say, "Hi, folks, I'm your captain today." Then just get the fuck off.
Yeah. Oh, I do have one more. Hold on. I never noticed this about Rocky. Did you ever? I mean, I watched Rocky again and again and again. Did you? How many times did you see Rocky? Did you see Rocky once at least?
I've seen the whole series once.
So.
Hey, Rob. What? Hey, she's retarded. She ain't retarded. She's shy, you know? Tell you what to do. Take her to the zoo. I hear retards like the zoo. Hey, this bum gotta say that. All right, back it up. I'm calling you a bum.
What are we doing here at the zoo?
What's really in there?
Is that both in the same movie? Because the zoo's in Rocky 2, isn't it?
Is it?
I think so.
I guess we gotta look that up.
Oh shit!
Let's see it one more time.
Hey, she's retarded. She ain't retarded. She's shy, you know? Tell you what to do. Take her to the zoo. I hear retards like the zoo. Hey, this bum gotta say that. All right, back it up. I'm calling you a bum.
What are we doing here at the zoo?
You're right. It is in Rocky 2 that he goes to the zoo. Man, that's a deep cut, man. Because I mean, you know, what are we doing at the zoo?
Oh God,
man! As soon as they made retard okay again with that executive order,
people start noticing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the executive order. That was my favorite one.
We got all sorts of good retard jokes now. Somebody in that same thing after I got called Nazi, I said, "Okay, retard," and then they said to me, "Well, that's a slur, but also look at the way you wrote that sentence up there. Are you sure you're not one?" And you're like, well, okay, but did you just use it? Like,
kind of did.
All right. So, but yeah, I think that's everything I got. Yeah.
Oh, hot damn.
It's it.
Guess I'll go pass out then.
Time to pass out. Oh, except for, well, there was that. This was right after we got off last year. That dude on Ex-Mormon who put up a video of like the worst kind of pastor that's almost exactly like those. Well, this guy, you remember?
Christian is just a confusing stance to me because there's nothing at all in any of Jesus's teachings, social or fiscal, that could be considered in any way conservative. To be conservative is pretty fundamentally to cling to the ways of the past, socially.
I only sit through the whole entire thing. That stuff's just infinite. It's infinite everywhere on all the Ex-Mormon pages, endlessly. Like all the Ex-Mormon pages are preaching now. They're all preaching. They're all preaching Jesus to me now. They're preaching Dan McClellan Jesus to me. That's every single Ex-Mormon page everywhere may as well be Mormon missionaries talking to me about Jesus.
They also don't even pretend anymore. Like they used to try to come up with some vague justification why they can overtly break their own rules of no political posting, and then they like got into the this isn't political, it's literally about human lives, and now they're like, well, we have to be political because bleh.
Yeah, like literally, like so, like this one right here. I just came from this one. I'm a better Christian than any Trump supporter, and I'm an atheist. Like every single post is that. Like, why is it not just Ex-Mormon missionary for Democrat Jesus land now?
Also,
I mean, it's just
to actually think that What would you have to think of those millions of people? You can't think of a single Trump voter that's also a good dude. a albeit misled good dude.
No, because they support the Hitler, man.
If I could point you to some Kamala voters who I think are good people.
I'm gonna say a martyr made thing that you shouldn't say. I guess I could say it. In the same week, I watched the Jerry Seinfeld episode where he made out during Schindler's List. So I can say this. I rewatched Schindler's List just this past week for the first time in 20-something years. And it kind of weirded me out, dude. All that killing? No, I'm just kidding. What weirded me out was there's weird sexual overtones in the thing, man.
Oh,
all the way
really?
through it. There really is. Like all the way through it. Like he has like weird sexual overtones with all the women everywhere in it. And then sometimes like when they're like getting them naked and stuff, there'll be like a scene of like every single time they're getting naked to go into like one of the things, I think it will cut over to a woman who's kind of attractive, kind of pulling off the stuff as if it were, you know, the Fibonacci thing and the thing that they're pulling off in this. Yeah, and I'm like, was that trying to make that kind of sexy? Like,
She's like
and
taking off her striped pajamas, like,
yeah. Yeah. And then there's always scenes where he's like, some lady comes to get saved and he's kind of like looking at him like, hey baby, you want some of this? I want some of you. Yeah. And then there's like this extended scene where that murder guy was kind of hitting on the lady, and I could swear it was kind of getting into the weird pressure he was putting on her sexually, like it was some sort of BDSM scene. But send me to hell for saying that. Jerry Seinfeld made out in the middle of it. Send him to hell. So, but I guess that makes sense because he was probably picking up on weird sexual overtones too.
yeah, he was just turned on.
Yeah, I thought it was weird. And then the other thing that was weird is when I was young, like I figured they just got saved, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hooray, they got saved. Americans saved them. No, they got liberated by the Russians.
Russia, yeah.
And they're in Poland. And when I was a kid, it didn't dawn on me like, wait a minute, they're entering into USSR Poland now? Like, is that rescued? Like, what did USSR do to Polish?
Oh, hooray, we've been saved. Thank you, saviors. Yes, now face the wall, Juden.
Under Soviet policies, Joseph Stalin's leadership, Jews in Soviet territories began to face restrictions. Stalin viewed Jewish identity and cultural expression as a potential threat to Soviet unity. It led to widespread anti-Semitic purges. The Doctors Plot in 1952, fabricated conspiracy known as the Doctors Plot, accused Jewish doctors of plotting to kill Soviet leaders. The event heightened anti-Semitic sentiment. Anti-Semitic purge in Poland. While this occurred after Stalin's death, it was influenced by the policies in 1968. Political crisis in Poland led to campaign of anti-Semitism orchestrated by the communist government. Many Polish Jews were forced to emigrate, and many faced discrimination in military, academic, and government. Anyway, there were any Polish nationalists were put into the Polish gulags as well. So if any of them were viewed as Polish nationalists, they got sent to that. And it was very easy to get considered as and they put in ethnic minorities and Jewish people into the Polish gulags as well. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I don't know. Go watch Schindler's List and enjoy it, and don't listen to Martyr Made. Churchill was a hero. Anyway, that's about it.
Well, hot damn.
Hot diggity.
All right. Well, I'll probably see you tomorrow.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Cool.
All right. Later.
Maybe. There we go.